Billups hates to see you coming.
I don't know if he does or not, but I mean, we're definitely going to bring him up.
We're going to talk about all of it today, Jeff.
Yeah. It's a wild time to be alive, especially for someone like myself. And this kind of comes all full circle for me, you know, kind of in what I do and some of my other life, you know, with the gambling and all that sort of thing. So I appreciate you having me back.
Of course. You were the first guy I thought of. Like when this dropped, I'm like, mob, gambling, sports. I need to hear what Nadu has to say.
Yeah, you were very nice about it. You said, you know, you're the only one I want to talk to on this. I said, beautiful. I'll make it up.
Well, I have the indictment right here, physical form, old school.
Yeah,
Thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah, that is. I mean, the thing about this case is like it's not just one case; it's two cases.
Yes,
and a lot of these people know each other, and you know, you hear a lot of this. Oh, there's still shoes to drop. I believe that's absolutely true because there's a lot of this stuff going on. I think you really just have to kind of remember what we've seen happen over the last year or two. So
yeah. Well, maybe at the top before we get into the nitty gritty, let's just start with the first case, the poker case. Can you just break down what the indictment says and, you know, where you actually can talk about some things like, you know, what you're hearing from Mafia sources and stuff like that? Because this is literally straight out of Tony Soprano, except they also cheated.
So I want to make this clear right out of the gate, okay? The Mafia for years, and we're talking decades, in New York, in certain businesses, take a tax from everything. Mm-hmm. And when I say tax, they get a percentage of, and nowadays it's more like kind of seedy business. So like strip clubs, poker games, things of that nature. Back in the day, you know about regular extortion. They were extorting everybody. Now it's more or less, it's kind of a circuit group of people. They run poker, dice. This goes on in New Jersey. This goes on in Staten Island, all the boroughs. And in particular areas in Manhattan, so for instance, Greenwich Village or one of these games was, that goes to a certain family. And they have a representation in that game. He collects, he gets a piece of every game. So like the fact that the mob's involved with this is not surprising. If you're playing at a game underground in New York, it's 99% sure there's some connection to the mob, whether it be an associate, there might be made guys in these clubs, and then there's always going to be that captain or made guy that is kind of the overseer of making sure everything runs, everybody gets paid.
What's up, guys? Thank you as always for checking out this video. If you have not hit that subscribe button yet, please take 1 second and hit it. It is the #1 analytic that we look for to be able to get these videos into the algorithm and continue to grow the show. So thank you for following along with everything we've been posting here. Hit that subscribe button and enjoy the episode. That was one of the things, though, in the indictment that I don't want to say it surprised me, but it seemed like a little convoluted in that the way they wrote it up, and maybe they were just a little careless with how they wrote it in here, it seemed like games were being protected at the same time by multiple families. So,
well, yeah. So, and that's the thing. Like, I think there's this premonition. I've heard it on, you know, some. I'll say this real clear. In this case and in the other case, some of the worst reporting you'll ever see went on with this case. I mean, it's just salacious. It's, you know, bringing up it's cool to say Chauncey Billups, it was with the mob. Chauncey Billups, I could almost assuredly tell you, has never spoken to a mobster in his life. And if he did, he didn't know.
He didn't know it, right?
Maybe he took a picture with somebody or something. But like, it's not like they were calling Chauncey on the phone and saying, hey, bro, you showing up tonight? Like, it didn't work like that. But yeah, I mean, these indictments can be a little like confusing, because you first have to understand the background of the games and how they work. And these families work together. There's this thought in the media that they don't like each other, they're rivals. These families, they all know each other. Most of them are cool. These families aren't fighting in the street. They all know each other. They all work together. Everybody gets a piece. So like in one of the games, the Gambino and Genovese families both had representation in the game, allegedly. And like I said, if you're in the poker, underground poker scene, these games, they're, like I said, they're all over the tri-state, everywhere. So yeah, I think kind of understanding that side, and that the people that are also involved in this are going to be some of these people are some of the biggest cheaters in the gambling world, whether it be sports betting, poker.
Like who?
For instance, Anwar Awadi is a known scam artist. He's one of the biggest cheat scam artists in America.
Also known as Flappy.
Correct. Got
it.
And Anwar's name popped up in the Jonte Porter case.
Oh, tell people who Jonte Porter was.
So last year, Jonte was an NBA player. His brother Michael Porter is quite a good player. Jonte played for the Raptors. Was kind of like wasn't a particularly prominent player by any means. I think the biggest thing you have to realize about the NBA people, whether it's Jonte, Chauncey, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones, these are all people that gamble regularly. Some of these people, Chauncey Billups has been playing poker for a long time.
Just poker, or is he known
other
to
games?
Do a lot of other things too?
Like, I'm not going to say he's played poker his whole life, but like I've heard his name over the last 5-ish years.
In what context? Just playing poker,
no? If you really know, and if you go out to Vegas, LA, really wherever, I've heard that Chauncey and another individual who is not in this indictment, but I've talked about, he's a prominent NBA player. I don't mind saying his name either. They scam games. They've been scamming games for years.
We gonna get a name?
Paul Pierce. Everybody knows that.
So, but to say they've been scamming games puts it beyond just them playing in like some regular illegal poker game, but they're actually like cheating.
Yeah,
now, when you say the cheating, because we're going to get to specifically what they did and they're accused of in this indictment, but when you're talking in that context of like Chauncey and Paul and what you had heard, are we talking regular old school like chip stacking and signaling, or are they actually using some of the things?
No, they're using, like, there could be some of that stuff, but they're using these shuffling machines, glasses, and I'm not going to say that they're like. What's interesting here is like, and this is why these indictments overlap in a way, because if you read the sports betting indictment, there's a person in it called Eric Ernest. He's also in this indictment. He's in both. Eric Ernest, from what I've been told, is a close friend of Chauncey's. Eric is pretty tied into the gambling, poker communities, everything. Has all sorts of contacts. And I think that's kind of where some of the bridging of this goes, as far as, they know each other through poker and somebody knows somebody else and they say, well, maybe he'd be willing to give us something, But with poker, Chauncey's played in games. I talked to one person that told me, and in this indictment, there's a reference of a game in April 2019.
In Vegas.
Correct. And this has come out publicly in the media. I posted it, and Pablo Torre then posted a day or so later that Kevin Garnett played in that game. I think he played for about an hour, and I was told that he left.
Did he win or lose?
That I don't know. But my source told me that Chauncey, quote, cleaned up in that game. Now, the same source also told me that when he had met Chauncey, he knew that he had played, but he wasn't really good at it. And then he just all of a sudden became really good at it quick, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And like the stuff I say about Paul Pierce, like, it's not a secret. Paul Pierce plays poker. He was in the ESPN when he was fired from ESPN with the strip club. He was playing a poker game. He's played on stream poker. When he plays poker, he gets drunk and acts crazy.
And there's nothing wrong with playing poker. It's a matter of if you're cheating people,
right?
If that is the case.
And there's this thought like, well, these guys make so much money. Like, why do any of this? And it's such a ridiculous point, because it's like everybody gambles. I mean, Dana White is a billionaire and gambles. Some of the richest people on earth love to gamble. I think in terms of these athletes, it started as they love to do it. And when you really play poker, when you really bet on sports, most of these people are degenerate gamblers.
Yeah.
I mean, they just get in too deep, and before you know it, it's, like, I'll take Chauncey, for instance. Like, let's say he makes five. I don't know what his.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can we actually Google that, Danny? So we got Danny filling in for Deef today. Shout out to Danny. He's new on the team here, doing a great job. But we should get like the year-by-year breakdown of Chauncey Billups' contract. So Chauncey Billups coaching contract.
Let's just take it, and let's say he makes $5 million a year. Okay, you and I hear that. Danny hears that. Any guy on the street hears that. That's a lot of money,
right?
But think about this: he makes $5 million a year. He really only makes about $2.5 million. He's got a wife. He's got kids. He's got to put them through school. He's got family. He lives in probably a really nice home. Like, before you know it, like, it's a good amount of money. But when you're gambling some of the levels that he is, he's not gambling, Julian, for $5, $10 on the street. He's playing games with 50, 100, 200,000 on the table. You get in quick, you lose. I mean, 200,000 is a lot of money.
But that's not what just to be clear, like I hear you, and it sounds like that might be a pattern that he has. What's so fascinating about his winnings as it's reported in this indictment, though, is that we're talking about, 10 grand here, 15 grand there for a guy that's making, we did pull it up, $4.7 million in salary and made, I believe, over $100 million in his NBA
But remember, in this indictment, the poker indictment, he's only listed as playing in one game in this indictment. And that's the one I told you about. 2019, correct.
Yeah, you were saying he was done. You tweeted this the other day. They did Chauncey Billups dirty with how they marketed this.
Well, they did, because they marketed it that he was in New York playing in Mafia run games when he wasn't. Like I said, I don't believe Chauncey Billups has ever met a mobster. I don't think he ever even played in the games in New York. But this is a nationwide ring of people who go to different cities and run games. So, for instance, there's a woman in this case. Her name is Sophie Wee, I believe. They call her Pookie. She's run games for years. Whether it be in New York, whether it be in Vegas, like some of these people have, like Zen Yu. He runs games in New York. There's a guy, Saul Botcher, in this indictment. Same with him.
Would anyone, but Jeff, the FBI is always going to look for a case with organized crime, so if they can make one, they'll make one.
Yeah.
But would anyone really care if it was like the Sopranos games, where it's just it's a big game, so it's outside of a casino, it's illegal in that respect, but they're just taking a regular rake and whoever wins wins. Whereas in this one, they were rigging the actual games. That's why people care.
That's the conversation I've had with so many people that are in the street and not in the street. People that are they play poker. I talked to one guy that plays in these games. He's played at Lexington Avenue and he's played at Washington Place, both in this indictment. Big guy. And he told me, that's the question I asked him. Because I know for a fact the rake in these games is more money than you could ever need.
Oh, yeah.
But they took it up a notch and said, not only are we going to take an insane rake, we're going to cheat. Because, the people that are playing in these games, some of them have tons of money.
By the way, I should have done this. Sorry, Jeff. But for people out there who aren't familiar with the case, Chauncey Billups is the current head coach, like literally currently of the Portland Trail Blazers, NBA legend. I kind of allude to that. But when we're saying rake, it's basically like when you're playing a hand in poker, I'm going to use round numbers here, and there's $100 in the pot and someone wins it at the end. The house, which would normally be a casino, takes 2% or something like that.
And it's every hand.
Yes.
So, but it's a little different than if you go to the Borgata to play 2-5.
Of course. Yeah.
It's like the rake that they're taking is insane. So let's say it's a 5K pot. They're palming chips, the deal. Like you don't even know how much they're taking half the time.
They're palming chips.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like in one game, they're making hundreds of thousands just off the rake. Yeah. And it's like, that's the ridiculousness of it. And that's, I'm going to guarantee, what some of the old timers in some of these families are saying, what the we had a good thing here.
Yeah.
And that's why, in a way, like I say, the mob and Chauncey kind of got screwed because one makes the other a lot more salacious, right? If the NBA guys aren't in this is just another indictment.
That's right. No one talks about it.
This has happened 4 or 5 times against the mob.
No one talks about it.
Over the last year.
Yeah.
There was
business expense.
There was one in this state within 3 months ago, but there was no Chauncey Billups or whoever else. So only I heard about it.
I remember Jeff Nadu reporting on that.
Well, yeah, because
on the Wayne Syndicate.
I'm one of the only people that does this. So it's like, but this is now a international story on every news station, and every talking head in sports media is talking about it because it's a current NBA coach. Chauncey's problems are not in this case. They're in the other case. Okay. The fact that you're an open coach in the league currently. He coached the first night of the season just days ago.
Yeah, got indicted the next
And then
morning.
a day later, he's, that's going to ruin his legacy. Like I said, if you're in these circles, like the gambling circle, like it wasn't overly surprising, at least to the people that I talked to, that Chauncey Billups was involved with this. So, I mean,
They had a feeling.
as far as the poker.
Okay. We're going to come back to the poker thing and get into the nitty gritty with that, but we keep referencing this other case, which is the one, you have it up here, Danny? It was the DL one? Yeah, so this one has, you said Chauncey's involved with this one despite the fact that he's not listed as a defendant in it.
Yeah, so I want to start at the beginning in this, because this is really like, it's fascinating how it all comes together. So there's two names in this 6-person indictment that are important. Number one is a person, De Niro Laster. Okay. Now, De Niro Laster is a kid from near Cleveland, Shaker Heights area. Played college football, University of Kentucky. That kind of, he's a pretty decent player. He played on D1. Terry Rozier.
Scary Terry.
Correct. Went to a high school within 5 miles of him. They have friends. They've been friends. I believe they both graduated in 2014, I believe. So it all kind of comes together there. So there's the connection. They know each other. Okay. The biggest name, though, is Marvis Fairley. He's this guy from Mississippi. He goes by Vizino. He's in this indictment also. He is a sports betting tout, handicapper. He has Instagram pages, that sort of thing, where he sells picks.
So he's like the Stu Feiner of Mississippi.
Right. And these people are very pervasive now, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, you'll see them driving around in really nice cars, and they kind of sell you can be me if you listen to my gambling advice, And I'm not stating whether he wins or loses. I don't know. I'm just going about what the indictment tells us. Rozier, there was talk that in a game, I believe it was 2024 against, was when he played for Charlotte. He plays in a game. He goes out 8 minutes into the game with an injury. There would be extremely irregular betting into that prop. And that's the one thing that, before I think you get into the actual case itself, one of the reasons that this is, I think, very pervasive now is prop bets. Because when you were fixing like a point spread years ago, you almost had to have 1 or 2 or 3 people involved. I guess you could have one person do it, but a prop is so much easier to rig because it's literally the person controls whether they get enough rebounds or assists or whatever. And you look at a person like Rozier, who isn't a big, he's not a wing player, he's a guard. So rebounds are his unlikeliest stat to gain. They were slamming his under rebound prop.
Was it like 1.5?
I don't remember what it was, but it didn't matter because he went out of the game anyway. And as long as you play, the action counts. So they won automatically. And what they would announce in these indictments is it was extremely irregular. And what was happening was Rozier was communicating to Mr. Laster that, this was going to happen, according to the indictment. He went to Marvis Fairley and some of Fairley's co-conspirators, and they went to legal sports books and bet a ton of money on them.
Did they have any text messages indicating that, or is it all like phone logs?
That hasn't been explained in the indictment, but I would imagine, whether it be there is some mention of apps, like Damon Jones was sent money through Zelle, things like that. And I have to tell you about a text message where, and when we get to the Damon, because it's all, every athlete has their own kind of story.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about Billups, Chauncey had a friend who I mentioned called Eric Ernest. Now, Eric Ernest's name is involved in both poker and sports betting. He's someone described him to me as like kind of a hustler. He's kind of always out there making money in games. I don't know how he makes a living, but people said that he's a guy that's out there in these games, playing, betting sports, that sort of thing. Billups it's towards the end of the season. The Trailblazers are out of the playoff race, and now we're fighting for spot in the draft lottery. So the worst team has the best chance. He initiates a conversation with Mr. Ernest that certain people aren't going to play. They're going to tank, blah, 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 blah. And this is, again, an NBA sitting head coach.
It's insane.
Doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. So he then gets this to Ernest. Ernest also goes to Marvis Fairley, who's this sports betting handicapper guy, and they make money off this. So
the idea, though, that a sitting head coach would be involved in fixing their own team's games, especially to the downside, is like worst case scenario.
I will say, and I think it is important, like fix, I think is a bit strong. I think he was giving information that the public was not given as well. So it was insider trading essentially. Fixing would be like, I know what you're saying.
If he takes out a guy who's got 37 points in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go because he needs to get some sort of prop bet through and then they lose the game, that's fixing.
I'm just looking out for you. You never know. They take every word you say.
Yeah. But hey, everything today is allegedly.
Sure. And it's all allegedly. And it's all in these indictments. I mean, that's the thing about indictments is like, I wish people would just read them. They map out everything, you know? And I think what the problem in this case is, in both these cases is, literally no media read the indictment because they're saying a bunch of shit that just hasn't happened. But
like what?
Well, like again, like that Billups was playing with mobsters. Like,
right.
He didn't. But yeah, so Billups gives out information that the public was not made to know or didn't know at that point.
Why is he not listed as a defendant on the indictment though? That's what I'm confused at.
He's because he's co-conspirator 8. They didn't name him. Go to the part where it discusses Portland Trailblazers. It essentially describes him. He's co-conspirator 8.
Do edit find next, Danny, and type in Portland.
Yeah, it's the part where they discuss the Portland.
Okay, so the NBA. This is section 7. The NBA was a professional. Oh no, that lists all the teams. Go to next.
Yeah, I think it's maybe page.
You got it. March 24th, 2023, Portland Trailblazers game. I'm going to read this, Jeff, so people have it. All right.
Fair enough.
On or about March 24, 2023, the Portland Trailblazers played the Chicago Bulls. Prior to the game, the Trailblazers' record was 32-40, and the team was out of playoff contention with only 10 games remaining in the season. Prior to the March 24 game, co-conspirator 8, there he is, told the defendant, Eric Ernest, there's your connection, that the Trailblazers were going to be tanking, i.e. intentionally losing to increase their odds of getting a better draft pick in the upcoming NBA draft. Co-conspirator 8 told Ernest before the news was publicly announced that several of the Trailblazers' best players, including player 1, an individual whose identity is known to the grand jury but is not announced here, would be playing in the March 24th game. The information that the Trailblazers would be tanking and not playing player 1 was not available to the public, including the betting companies. Prior to the March 24 game, the defendant, Eric Ernest, provided this non-public inside information to the defendant, Marvis Fairley, so that Fairley could place fraudulent wagers on the game and share the profits with Ernest. In exchange, Fairley ultimately promised to pay Ernest at least $5,000 if the bets, let's go down a page, Danny, if the bets against the Trailblazers were successful. In addition, Fairley texted Ernest, there it is, a screenshot of a purported $20,000 wire transfer from Fairley's bank account to Ernest, accompanied by the message address for wire. That's insane that you would put that on it.
Well, and what also you didn't read is they describe co-conspirator 8, and he's a NBA All-Star Hall of Famer that played in the league from these dates to this date, and he's a prominent coach for the Trailblazers. So it essentially makes Chauncey Billups co-conspirator 8.
So why didn't they put his? I'm so confused. What's the legal thing there?
I think there's all sorts of there's some co-conspirators in here that are named co-conspirators. There are player certain one to be named. Like they figured out you can figure out who these people are.
Right.
My guess is there could be superseding charges on.
Right, so they'll actually charge him in a later indictment.
Probably.
Because right now he's technically not charged in that indictment.
Technically.
But doesn't look good.
And that would have to be something the feds would have to answer. Like, why is he not listed? But like, this is, everybody's put this out already. But yeah, I mean, it's really as simple as it says here. And this is, again, something I've tried to understand when you were a criminal, really in any circle. This right here is the end for you.
Yes.
Because
the phone.
Yeah, and it's just so, you know how hard it is to communicate without a phone? You know, even as simple as something like you go to do a murder and the phone's in your pocket and you think it's turned off and it's not, like, that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
The only way you can stay away is by not having the phone with you.
And you know what? To your point, is everybody, bro. I just had Mike Yeagley in this chair two times.
I watched that, yeah.
So he literally tracked and went to the government to say you have a problem. From his bedroom with publicly available data, he tracked phones leaving Fort Bragg, going back to certain addresses, got the names of everyone there, and then would watch these phones every month or two go to fucking Syria to Lafarge Concrete Company, and went to the government and said, hey guys, your Delta Force undercover operation is findable in my bedroom. What do you think China's doing? So it's like now if you're a regular 2-bit criminal, think about how easy it is.
But like what even is more like amazing about some of the stupidity in this is like you don't even try to use like Signal or Telegram. Like you're just doing it on like a regular text message. You're then taking the money, wiring it. Like there's just so many things that like these people do. And again, like I think anyone thinks like I'm not going to get caught. And I think in terms of like why the players did this, why the coaches did this, I think most of it probably goes back to the fact that they owed money. Yeah. And like when you look at Jonte Porter, who I talked about, Jonte Porter owed a gambling debt.
Yes.
And he owed a gambling debt to some of the people that are listed in these indictments. So I think they go to them and say, look, you know, we're not going to threaten you. We're not going to do anything like that, but you owe me. Just don't grab a rebound. No one's ever going to find out, you know, and he thinks like, well, I do owe this and, you know, I want to keep betting or I don't want to have any problems. So I'm going to do it. And I just think the thought is no one would ever get caught, you know?
You know what I want to know with this? This is where my head goes to. That's going to be very interesting if it comes out in court is these platforms, these betting platforms, they're obviously, you know, online, electronic. They have their automatic data collectors. I wonder if people at the company flag these.
Well, I'm going to tell you why they absolutely are. And this is how these people have been caught. I mentioned prop bets and kind of how they work. If on tonight's Monday Night Football game, there's millions of dollars in action, that's going to be very normal, right? But some random prop. And that's the thing about these people. They didn't even try to hide like and bet, you know, 10, 20,000.
Right.
It was we're going to bet as much as we can on some random prop and we're the only people that know about it. Like and this is why when someone brings up, well, see, this is what gambling's doing to these leagues. No, this is the good thing about why we have legalized gambling because regulators spot this shit. And that's what the good thing about a regulated market is. It's regulated. It's just like this has been one of my thoughts on why we need to legalize narcotics in America. Because when you legalize something, there's a regulated board that looks over it and makes sure that everything's working.
So here's the one thing about that, Jeff, because I would like to think that way too, but like something that I supported forever and do support is the legalization of weed. And yet I just had Steve Robinson in here who's uncovered all the ways that because they mass legalized it at once, all the ways fucking everyone's breaking every law and the regulars aren't doing shit about it.
And that is true. That said, when it's illegal, there is no sort of oversight, and everybody's doing it anyway.
That's true.
And when I talk about gambling, like if we didn't have legalization and we didn't have some of these big sports books and a regulated body that look over it, some of this stuff maybe wouldn't be under scrutiny. And remember, before PASPA was passed, the legalized betting law, this was all done offshore. So that brings in the fact of you're now dealing with foreign governments, maybe in some that we don't even deal with, and there's no way to even understand what's going on. So yeah, I think the flagging of the wagers, that's why this stuff popped up. And we've seen that with some of the other investigations that these bodies are doing. There was investigations the last several years into various college games, Temple University, New Orleans.
Can you explain that one, the Temple University
Yeah,
one?
so there was irregular bets on point spreads. Wide moves in the line. I'm talking 13, 14-point moves in a basketball game, which is insane. And what we've seen is a lot of those are and have been under investigation. So I think all these people, and I'm going to maybe say something that no one else has heard, but if you don't, and I'm not saying it's these people in these indictments, but there is a group of people currently, and it's not the mafia or anything like that. It's young kids that have a bunch of money that bet. They're going to athletes and saying, look, everybody's doing this. You want to make some money sometime? Hit me up. We'll make it work for you. I think that's absolutely going on because when we hear NIL, you know, we think about, you know, the Cooper Flags of the world who are making tons of money. A lot of the schools involved in some of this stuff that were investigated, you know, schools like North Carolina A&T was
Yeah, they're
investigated.
making nothing.
People like that, they're not making little, if any, money. And, I think it's just a real simple thought of like, the money's just dropped off on your stoop, and you do what you got to do. Now, that hasn't been involved in an indictment. There's been investigations. Are they working towards something with that? If they do, that's going to be really big.
Oh, dude, I'll bet it's coming. I bet it's coming.
And I think what's the sad part for me is like I love college sports. It's my bread and butter when it comes to sports betting. I thoroughly enjoy it. And to hear, I bet on that UAB Temple game, the one that I talked about. I mean, I remember the game perfectly. So
when was this? Last year?
I remember the game. It was like 100-72 or something. It was a wild game. Was it the years run so consecutively? I think it was late 23, early 24.
Okay.
And I remember it was a big story. And the reason this whole like there's a shadowy group that's doing this, there was a TikTok that went viral from some like third string quarterback at like Vanderbilt or something. And he said that he knows that there's this like mafia-like group that came to him. And people just threw it out like, oh, this fucking kid's rage baiting or something, engagement farming. And, I think in the circles that I've gotten to know and been in, like, this is definitely happening.
Oh, yeah.
And I again I don't want to sit here and act like I'm an apologist for the mafia because I'm not. But like, I think what it really is people that are likely maybe running games, poker games, and they also are sports bettors. Maybe they're someone who knows a mobster and they use it as, you don't want to say no to me.
Right. Right. It's a pressure tactic.
I don't think they're out there like threatening to hurt people. It's just kind of, and that's the funny thing that I learned about in all the mob stuff I'm doing. Like, I think most Joe Q public, they hear the word mafia and they think like, what the movies have told us, or what the mafia maybe was 50 years ago. The mafia is not the powerful group that it was once.
Right.
But most people assume that it still is. Like if I go out, on the street right now and I ask 5 people, when you hear the word mafia, what do you think of? You know what they're going to say? Generally?
Murder?
No. Tony Soprano.
Oh, you're thinking
or
like
Vito.
actual-
They're just going to bring up some fake movie
yeah.
actor or something, or John Gotti or something like that. I think the most of America has a lost thought on like what, like even some of the reporting in this, it's like the mafia. It's like from someone that I don't like to call myself an expert, but like
You're an expert in the mafia.
okay, well, I'll tell you, like I've been doing this 4 years. The amount of people in that life that have contacted me in one way or another that say, I love your show. I mean, I could write a book. I mean, it's not like they're bashing down my door a lot of the time. Look, would I walk around certain neighborhoods in Staten Island or something by myself? Probably not.
No one would.
Yeah.
I
think it's really just like, you worry about maybe some of the young kids that get upset or something. But like I'm trying to point out here is the mafia, they don't have that capability to go to athletes and stuff. They're not doing that. These are young people doing this.
You've made the claim, though, publicly that the mafia hasn't dropped a body in years. Now, before I go into this, there is no doubt that as far as like dropping bodies and stuff like that goes compared to 30 years ago, there's no doubt that would have pulled back a lot. But you're telling me that they haven't whacked anybody in the last decade?
There is a no-kill order in the mob right now.
What kind of source do you have on that?
There haven't been any.
Yeah, that we know of.
No, but let me explain it like this. So I want to also backtrack because there'll be people in the comments saying, well, hold on a second. Frank Cali, the alleged acting boss of the Gambino crime family, was killed in 2019. He wasn't killed by someone in the mob. He was killed by a crazed individual that he had a beef with.
Right.
Who was not in the mafia.
Conveniently.
Right. No, you can look it up. Anthony Camello was ruled insane. He's in a nut house somewhere in New York. That's the truth.
I mean, does he have like a good coach as a lawyer or?
Look,
I don't like that pause.
I did an investigation into Anthony Camello. I talked to people that knew him as a child. I talked to people that knew him as a high schooler. Do I think at some point Anthony Camillo had a dream to be a mob guy? Probably. He was from Staten Island. Every kid does.
Right.
But was he in a family, connected to a family, and did it for, maybe in his stupid warped head, he thought he was going to impress somebody, but he was not sent by someone else. Frank Cali, if you talk around, was very respected by everybody that I know of in that life. No one said a bad word about him. He was a very powerful individual. He wasn't somewhere out there, in public like a John Gotti would be. He was very low-key, made money. He was a Sicilian guy. Very respected.
Wait, he was actually, so he's a Zip? He was actually from Sicily?
Yeah, he was part of the Sicilian faction of the family.
Got it.
And he married into a pretty prominent family. There's no involvement. Camillo was not like working for someone else and another family wanted Frank Cali dead. The last known murder involving the mob was a guy, Michael Meldish, who was taken out in, I think it was 2014 in the Bronx. Michael Meldish was a Jewish guy. He was a gangster. And he had worked with the mob for years off and on. The alleged people that did that hit were associates of the Mafia.
Why did they do it?
Well, there's a number of reasons why Michael Meldish was taken out. It's never truly been proven, one of which was that he owed money, a large amount of money, and he was basically telling them to fuck off and he was not going to pay it. There's also a growing concern that Meldish was dating a woman that was connected to another member because Meldish was actually beaten at a festival about a year before by members and associates of the Bonanno crime family, one of which is right here.
Ernest Aiello. Wasn't he just found guilty of something else too? Or
no, that's Joe Lonnie. I'll talk about Joe. Yeah. Joe's had a bad couple of weeks. But Ernest Aiello, weirdly enough, was someone who beat up Michael Meldish I think it was the Giglio Feast, which is in Harlem. I think it's every October. I think it was just a couple of weeks ago. Michael Meldish was attacked, and Ernie was supposedly one of the people that did that.
And then a year later, he's dead.
Yeah. So there's growing thought. The people that we ended up finding out supposedly did this were tied to the boss of the Lucchese crime family, the guy Matty Madonna. He's actually serving life for this hit.
Yeah.
He's old. He's like in his late 80s. They sent 2 hitters. One of them was a black associate, Terrence Caldwell. He did pieces of work for the family occasionally. And then another kid, Chris Londonio is his name. And yeah, that was the last known mob hit. Some families, like the Colombo family, the last known murder involving a member of the mob by another member of the mob was way back in 1999.
Again, though, that we know of.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, we would know if someone was killed. It would be reported.
No body, no crime.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
Someone would wonder where they are.
Sure, but there's missing people every day.
All I'm saying is, and you could talk to Jerry Capisci at Gangland News. You could talk to any prominent, bigger than me reporter on the mob, the ones that are still out there. There's largely been a no-kill order. And we know that too, because if you notice, where are all the rats now? They're on YouTube.
Right.
They walk around Little Italy.
Yeah.
The mob doesn't even kill them.
Now, hold on. So that would make sense to me, though, because of the public availability.
I'm going to tell you why they don't do it. Because they've been neutered by the government. That's why. They don't have power to do that anymore. And they're under scrutiny. They're constantly – look at any time they can use the Mafia in something. Look at what happens.
Right.
Anybody will tell you they're not killing nobody. It's not happening. Could some nutcase go off the deep end and do it? And go off cold cock? Maybe.
Now, why don't they make, and I know they make some cases, but you don't hear about it. I'm just going to name one, for example, about cases made against the Russian mafia a lot, because that's totally different. I've talked to FBI guys who have been very specific that, to be clear, more along your thinking, the mafia doesn't really drop a lot of bodies anymore. They don't go as far as you and say they do none, but they do say like it's not like it used to be for sure. But they're like the Russians.
What I also want to make this clear. This is really important to say. When I talk about no kill order, I'm talking about Cosa Nostra.
Yes.
5 families.
Yes, I know that.
I'm not like
I know
you
that.
look at other organized, and this is why the mafia is no longer on the criminal totem pole at the top.
But that's why I'm asking Jeff.
Yeah.
If another type of mafia faction, in this case, like the Russians, are doing that shit, which
Sure.
they are.
Albanians, you got
and
cartels.
they're not getting there's not a giant public manhunt for the fucking Russian organizations. What's stopping the Italians from being like, well, I guess we'd be okay too?
Well, because the difference between these groups and the one that we're talking about here is there have been some of the greatest films ever made about them.
You don't like Eastern Promises?
It's a great movie, but it's not The Godfather.
I got you.
It's not Goodfellas.
Yes.
It's not the greatest television show of all time, The Sopranos.
Yes.
The mafia has become a pariah for the government, and they've done a great job stamping them out. I'm not going to tell you they haven't. That is probably the one thing this government, from an organized crime at the FBI level, did very well. And all of these guys, and I use that word neutered because that's what they are. They are a clipped group that they cross the street the wrong way.
Oh yeah,
they're getting jammed up. And I think this is what makes this indictment, this poker thing, so kind of crazy to me, because some of the people that they did end up doing business with here are considered what I would say to be hotheads. I do find it interesting that most of the mob guys in this, so your Ernie Aiello, Didino, Lee Fama, Tommy Gilardo, they're all, in terms of the mob, young.
Wasn't Ruggiero's kid in this too?
Yep, Quack, yeah, Junior.
Yeah.
You also have Joe Lonnie, who I could talk about.
Yeah, Joe Lonnie's the one who's having a bad month.
Yeah, Joe's had a really bad month. And you do look at, and what I referenced in a recent show I did about Lonnie and his people, I would say if there is a semblance of some violence coming back, we're starting to see it in some of the recent indictments, particularly Joe's indictment. Joe was involved in late 2023 in an indictment surrounding members and associates of the Gambino crime family. Joe is a captain, allegedly. He is part of the Sicilian faction. He has ears to some of the top brass in that group. Joe and his associates were attempting to take over the carting and demolition industries. So essentially garbage and demolition. And in that indictment, there are pervasive acts of violence. I'm talking about beating people with hammers, lighting things on fire.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
And that's where, and I talked about that in a recent video, and I discussed kind of why the Gambino crime family on certain levels is starting to come back just a bit. And I think what goes to your argument and why you could see it maybe the next few years is recently, and what's funny is the FBI had mentioned about a month ago in a press release that you probably didn't even see, that there's actually only one FBI squad now looking at all 5 families. C5. That's the only unit left. And I think with that and like less oversight and some of, again, these families are starting to get more young. You know, and I talked about why the Gambino, they're starting to make new members, 20, 30, 40 years old. You know, these are younger people in terms of the mob.
Yes.
And what I find that goes hand in hand with this is in the Lanny indictment and in this indictment, younger people. Tommy Gilardo's like 40, 39, I think.
And he has some sort of kind of senior role.
Violent stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, so I think if, as I said, I don't believe there's been any murders, and I know there hasn't been. Could there be in the next few years? It wouldn't surprise me. But if you read to these indictments, there is starting to be more and more violence. And for anyone that says this isn't a violent case, I mean, you have to go back to, for instance, count 6, Hobbs Act robbery conspiracy. We talked about the cheating.
Yeah.
How they cheated was they were using rigged shuffling machines. Now, any casino in America, you've played poker, they all have shuffling machines. The thing that makes these different is, think of it like a ghost gun. You have to get parts to assemble a ghost gun. You have to have someone add a switch to it even.
Right.
That has to be done by a person in particular. Not anybody can do that.
Oh, shit. They're doing that with shuffling machines?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Think of it also like, if you watch Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah, I did.
So one of the challenges that Walt and Jesse have early on is they're trying to cook meth by using Sudafed, which is, you have to have a ton of Sudafed.
Right.
And there's now actually a law where, like, I have Zyrtec D. I use it for allergies. You can't buy more than 1 pack of Zyrtec. I don't know if you know that. You have to sign like a paper.
Yeah.
And that protects it against people. They call them Smurfs. They would take Smurfs and send them into drugstores and buy a bunch of Sudafed. And what Walt and Jesse realize is if they get methylphenidate, I believe it is, they get in the big drums, they can make all sorts of meth and it's way easier. But getting that's hard. Same thing with a rig shuffling machine. You can get a shuffler, but getting someone with a certain set of skills that can shuffle it and rig it, that's another story. And what these guys did, the greed, they didn't even pay for it. They just jammed the guy up and stole it from him. That's your Hobbs Act robbery conspiracy. And not only these geniuses, they use their own cars to do it. You see them on pole cameras, there's toll records, and they set him up. They picked the guy up with the shuffling machine, John Doe 7. He has the shuffling machine in his hands. Two of the defendants have a car and park, and two other defendants come up and rob him with the shuffling machine.
Where is that in count 6?
That's in count 7.
Okay.
And I'll find where it describes what they did in particular.
In or about between September 2023 and October 2023, both dates being approximate and inclusive within the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere, the defendants Saul Betcher, Zen Hu, also known as Jonathan Chan. I love how it's Jonathan.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hu, Screwley, and Stanley, and Seth Trussman, together with others, did knowingly and intentionally conspire to obstruct, delay, and affect commerce and the movement of articles and commodities in commerce by extortion, in that the defendants and others obtained property, to wit, United States currency, from John Doe number 6 with his consent, which consent was induced by wrongful use of actual and threatened force, violence, and fear.
I'm going to send you the detention memo in this.
The detention memo?
Yeah, that will describe, that's actually better than the indictment. I can email it to you right now. That's right there. Yeah, that's enough.
Okay. All right. Sorry, we couldn't find that for a minute, so we're back now. All right, I'm going to read this, Jeff. So this is what's it called? A detention?
This is a part of the detention memo, yeah.
Okay, so robbery of John Doe number 7, count 6, as charged in count 6 of the indictment. Defendants Awade, Hody, Mazzola, Minucci, and Stroud plotted to rob a rig shuffling machine from John Doe number 7 in September 2023. The robbery was successful in the early morning hours of September 7th, 2023. Specifically, Stroud learned that John Doe 7, who was also involved in the operation of rigged poker games, had a rigged version of the Deckmate 1 shuffler, and he plotted with others to rob it from John Doe 7 at gunpoint. In the early morning hours of September 7th, 2023, John Doe 7 was in a car with Hody and Mazzola, where two individuals recruited by Minucci approached the car, brandished a gun, and demanded the box from John Doe 7. At the time of the robbery, Hody, who was driving the car and in on the scheme along with Mazzola, kept the car in park and did not drive away. John Doe number 7 turned over the rig shuffling machine to Minucci and the gunman. Evidence of the robbery includes text messages, poll camera footage, and license plate ready information showing the cars registered to Minucci and Hody participated in the robbery. For example, on September 6, 2023, the day before the robbery, Goodson sent Stroud a photograph of John Doe 7 at the airport, apparently confirming that John Doe 7 had arrived in New York at approximately 12:31 a.m. on September 7th. Poll camera footage showed Minucci's car arrive at Lexington Avenue at the same time, right by the location too. At the same time, Hody texted Awade, "Nick is here. Do I let him up?" I guess meaning light him up, to which Awade replied, "Tell him I'm coming down."
No, Nick was there to see him.
Oh, right.
Kind of like when I came here. You
Right,
just say,
right.
Come up.
Okay, so scroll down, Danny. After the robbery, Hanaday and Awade exchanged the following messages about how Awade had participated in the robbery of the deck.
And so these messages are kind of quite funny.
Yeah.
Henan texts Awade and says, "So you're robbing D1 machines now."
Uh-huh.
And he sends a meme back like, "You hide your wife, hide your kids" meme. And yeah, so it's just like very like.
It's nice the mobsters use memes too.
Yeah, but these are like just young like game runner cheats that are like stealing shuffling machines. Yeah. And there's also another situation where eventually, so I mentioned there's two games. There was one in Greenwich Village, 80 Washington Place, and then there's one up in Midtown. It's Lexington Avenue, 147 Lexington Avenue. It's in Kips Bay. Mm-hmm. At one point, the mob,
great neighborhoods too.
Yeah, at one point the mob members and associates decide that they're going to combine both of the games. They're going to just have one big game on Lex. To which defendant Awade says, "Fuck you guys. I'm starting my own game and I'm going to keep it at Washington." and you're not going to do shit about it. And I'm going to have it the same day and time as you. To which the other count of violence comes in, where defendant Gilardo and Ziliani, they're both, one's a mob-made guy, the other's an associate. They run in this house during a game and beat up Awadi. And then Gilardo texts the other co-conspirators and says, keep him the fuck away from us. Don't talk to any of him and his people. He's dead to us, basically. So
imagine telling the mob, fuck you, I'm doing my own game.
Well, but I think this goes back to what I said earlier, that like I think some guys just don't really worry about it, and I think that nothing's going to happen. And there are still some tough guys that are willing to hurt people. Like Gilardo's anybody that I've talked to is a tough guy. Like he's a he's the gym guy. He if you've ever seen Tommy Gilardo, like he's
pull him up, Tommy.
Tommy's he dated a mob wife. He's
like from the show.
Yeah.
Which one?
She's in one of the pictures.
Yeah, okay.
It's a beautiful girl. I mean, I'll tell you one thing about Tommy. Yeah. He has no trouble with the ladies.
Yeah, hit images.
Yeah, he's a big, that guy right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, would you mess with him?
He's a big dude.
Yeah, and Tommy is, he's a moneymaker. They
see this fucking, hey yo, Chauncey.
Yeah.
Chauncey, one in.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And they just ran in the game. And I think that's when this all kind of came apart, these games. Because I think one thing, like, when we look at these game runners, some of the guys in this indictment, so like Amar Awadi, Saul Betcher, like all these guys, they run the games. And they just kind of work in unison with these guys.
What is that? See the one that says exclusive shell shock to the right? A little more right there. What does that say?
That's Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, but okay, I didn't know if it was showing this guy in the picture. It doesn't. Is that Way? Is that Sophia Way right there?
I don't believe so. Okay. I think this is some sort of like charity game or something. But
okay, yeah,
that's just kind of, I think, showing us that he plays poker. I don't know what that's from. It could be. I've only seen her in one photo, so I don't know offhand. But
you would, to go back to Chauncey for one sec, just as a sidebar. So as you laid out towards the beginning of our conversation, you had heard that he was big into just gambling in general for years.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever insinuate to you that he was in debt to a lot of people and that he would therefore be a threat for insider?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. And this actually went viral the day this came out. This was said several years ago by a guy, Matt Berkey. He's a poker professional, big poker player.
Oh, I saw this video.
Yeah, Berkey has a podcast, and he talked about years ago. He said in 2019, I knew this game was no good, and Chauncey was at it. But like I said, the reason why I think Chauncey, at least in the poker stuff, like I've said time and time again, I don't think he ever knew anyone in the mob. He played in a game that some of these defendants kind of worked overlapping on the West Coast, because these guys are all around the country.
Well, Jeff, that's also underscoring like a wild point here. Mm-hmm. The fact that at some of these games where they're rigging it, they invite professional poker players who do nothing but play poker and are poker geniuses. They are that confident, wrongly so, that they're not going to be caught, that they invite guys whose job it is to play the game and assume they're going to be like, oh, well, I guess I just got cleaned out by Chauncey Billups. Like, come on, bro.
Well, and that's why they reference like the face card thing.
Yeah.
Which
a face card. That to be?
Yeah. So a face card was, a member of the cheating team that received some sort of money from it. He was. Then you have the quarterback, which like directs all the people on what to do. Because when you get these shuffling machines, there's also like stuff under the table that could read the card. That has to be pushed to someone else, and then in turn to someone else. So there's a lot of people that need to be involved. And then Chauncey and Damon Jones were involved in, bringing like Kevin Garnett or
attracting big fish.
Yeah, right.
Victims.
And that's the thing as well. I mean, I think the big thing that I would include in the poker stuff is there are two separate sets of games. The ones that are controlled by New York and the mob, and then all the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think, also it's got to be said, the fact that if you're going to attract big fish, forget just the poker players. They're also allegedly attracting celebrity friends with deep pockets. And by the way, Kevin Garnett is someone who got taken for, I believe, $77 million by a financial advisor back in the day. So this is someone who's been a victim to stuff before. And if this is alleged to be true, you, his friend, Chauncey Billups, bring him to a game that you know is getting rigged. That is some I mean, it's all low life, but that is some low life.
Yeah, and
shit. And Kevin Garnett was just in fucking Uncut Gems, which is a movie about, like, I mean, you can't even make this shit up.
But I do think, like, I think we have to also remember, like, there's a fine line between, like, playing poker and though taking a rake is illegal. Like, everybody does that.
Yes.
You know, but like where it becomes really scammy is when you're, again, like you just said, you're cheating. Like you're, you know, also like when you play in these games, like I talked to one guy that played at Lex, the Lex game. He said he played there many times. He said, I asked him, I said, so if there are 10 games, how many are being cheated? He said all 10.
And he knew it.
Yeah.
So he stopped playing those games.
Exactly.
Right.
And he even told them, I'm not paying you.
What kind of guy was this? Like someone mob associated?
No, this guy knows people for sure. I mean, is he a main guy? No, but like he plays, you know, a lot of guys play. Maybe they run a game or something, but like he knew what was going on. I mean, I think, but then again, there are people that just don't care. They have money. They don't care. Like some of the fish that are in these games in New York,
they don't care that they're losing and being cheated.
No, they're degenerate gamblers.
But if they can't win.
But I don't know if they knew. That's the thing.
Right. Okay.
Some people didn't. Some smart guys, like you just said, like the poker pros, they probably know. I'll tell you right now, if I went to a home game and there are two things going on, I wouldn't play. If they allowed phones or they had a shuffling machine, I would wonder. Play. No. Yeah. Be like, so I played at I'll shout him out, Hustler Casino live. It's a big prominent poker stream.
Yeah.
No phones. You put them in a locker.
Yep.
And it's a 1 hour delay on the stream. So like if you watch the Word Series of Poker, it's not live.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's a delay to prevent this shit.
Of course.
You go to some game in New York that is underground and off the beaten path, you know. And what I think what I want to tell the public about these games that's so kind of inviting is these games anybody would want to play at. Like I've always said the funnest thing you can do is play poker. It's so fun.
It's a great game.
And like you're there, and especially if you're winning, it's great. And these games are particularly great because they're in a beautiful home or like apartment. You get escorted up with like a big security guy. Everybody's money's good. It's not like you walk in with 100,000. It's all sent up before you get there. Right. You walk up, beautiful table. I mean, you can. Any food you want, they'll go get you. Great liquor. There are women there, and I've seen the women that are at these games.
And they do approved?
They're just beautiful.
Yeah.
They're topless. You know, I'm sure if you needed a loan, someone would give it to you. Like it's a nice, inviting type of poker. It's better than going to like a borgata or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's great. And I think that's kind of the inviting. And that's the sad thing I think about this stuff is, like I said before, they didn't need to cheat.
Right.
Like these games are already big enough.
They're basically doing like what the Astros did, except at a poker table.
Yeah. And what I think makes it really hard on like the Chaunceys and people like that, Damon Jones as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I still want to talk about Damon.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what sets them up, and I want to again make it clear, in this poker indictment, there's only one mention of Mr. Billups playing in one of these games.
2019.
Correct. You know, do I believe and have I heard that he's played poker for years and he's been involved in some tough stuff himself in poker? Yes, but that is not involved in this.
Can we pull up Chauncey's Wikipedia? I just want to see a timeline here because he's been the coach now of the Blazers the last 2-3 years. I just want to make sure before I speculate something here that I know.
I mean, one other thing that I'll point out.
Go ahead.
I mean, in and around July and June of 23, one of the games, John Doe won, lost approximately $1.8 million. That's an insane amount of money.
I saw that.
You know, that's how big these games can go.
Yeah, let's see. All right, so go all the way down, Danny. I want to go past his professional career.
I think he's been the coach since 21.
Right, but I want to see I believe he was in. Keep going. It's a while. He had a long career. All right. Okay. So Big 3, 2017. Billups was a player in that. 2020, November 2020. So a year and a half after that 2019 game, he's hired as an assistant coach to the Clippers with Tyronn Lue, and then he's named head coach of the Trailblazers less than a year later in June 2021. Wasn't he in broadcasting before that?
I think he did some. Yeah, I think he did. I think it was at
with
ESPN,
ESPN, which is over here.
So is Paul Pierce as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Very interesting. Over here, dangerously close to where some New York games were being played. I'm not making any claims here. I'm just pointing out some geography. That's it. This is all allegedly. But that's interesting.
And again, I'm not saying this. I was told by people that Paul Pierce has played in New York games before. But then again, like there have been stories that baseball players, I'm not going to name which ones, played in these poker games. Like that's public information.
Yeah, and it also does, to be clear, it does, just playing in the games doesn't make you guilty or anything. For all we know, and actually it's more probable than not, especially if they're not named in this indictment, a lot of them were marks. They were quote unquote, as you said, the term was used, face cards, who were brought there for two reasons: to be a mark for their money, to be taken for a fucking ride, and also to attract other people who have deep pockets without a high profile publicly to come there and be taken for a ride, which makes a lot of sense. It's just sad that it would appear that sometimes it was literally their friends, quote unquote, inviting them to these games to get taken.
Yeah, and I think, that's, if that truly is what happened in the Garnett type thing. I know Antonio Gates, it's been reported he played at one of the games in Miami.
You had that early.
I did. Yeah, I did. Pablo Torre then put it out, which Pablo's bigger than I am. It just is what it is. But I think
you don't have a hashtag though.
Well, he doesn't. But what I think that's cool about that is it gave me kind of some confirmation that the reporting that I'm getting is good info.
And what were they saying about Gates? What was the specifics? Gates just that he played in one?
Yeah, Gates played at the game in Miami, which is referenced here. I've also heard another prominent athlete, a boxer, played there, and others as well. I think that's the...
Does it rhyme with Schmoid Schmayweather?
No.
Okay.
No. It rhymes with... I won't say it. I put it out though. They were game in the Hamptons.
Oh yeah, I saw that. How many? June 2023, by the way, during dangerously close to free agency tampering period.
Yeah,
right.
And again, like I think people see this money. It's like you go to a game, you lose $105K at a game. I went to Hustler and lost $4 or $5 grand. It's like that's a decent amount of money to lose in a game.
That's a tough night.
You lose $100K. If it's over 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
It's just on both accounts. It didn't have to happen, and it all goes back to the theory we're talking about with the mob. It's a lot of these defendants mob wise are young. And it's I think you're starting to see some of the younger guys starting to get in a little bit deeper to some of the violence and willing to take chances.
What do you think is causing that? The fact that they're having success now suddenly with let's call it Gen Z and millennials and recruiting. Is it the pop culture aspect?
Maybe. I think, a lot of these kids, I've always said, if you're a family member of these people, it's pretty likely that you'll get into the life. So if your father's a mob guy, everybody wants to do what their dad did,
Right.
And I think to be a mob guy, there is a part of I'm a cool guy. And then let's say you live in Howard Beach, Queens, being a May guy is big thing, you know how small communities are, I know in the town I live in,
dude, in Jersey, it's,
and those little towns that I'm in, I'm not some celebrity, but I get recognized. It's cool. People I see at Barstool or whatever, that's kind of how it is. But for mob guys, it's a certain level of they get respect.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, in the internet culture where it's not the same as it was, and now everyone can whip out a camera and whatever. I never knew any of those guys, but I was in a restaurant a few different times where it was understood that one of those guys walked in, and it's no one's whipping out their phones.
No,
it's very.
And like I said, when you live in a small Staten Island type place where everybody knows everybody, sometimes you just get into the life because it allows you to have you could be a businessman. You might own a car dealership or something. It allows you a leg up in negotiating and shit. So It's a lot different now. You know, you don't have to kill somebody to get in. You don't have to be a big drug trafficker to get in. Like a lot of the businesses that these guys are involved in, not poker obviously, but a lot of them are involved in legitimate businesses.
So how do you now, in the old days when it was pure, you know, for a guy to get made, very often it was he had to make his bones first.
Yeah, that's
right. So that's not by making your bones. It's you kill a guy. So they're not doing that now. So what are you hearing are the equivalents of them making their bones to get made?
They're not doing it. They
just crime.
The method of
money making.
The method of inviting at this point, and I'm going to tell you something that's pretty wild that not a lot of people will ever bring up. There are guys in this indictment. I'm not going to say who. One of which there's a question of years ago he was involved in a crime. He gave statements to the police. There's paperwork on it. He mentioned other people's names. Now, in that world, that is no good.
That's
don't do that.
That's a cheese-eating rat bastard.
Right. You can't, and it's as simple as like if you're on a Fed case and they call you down and you like start making small talk with a cop, like that's no good, you know? But one of them in this case, you know, that's a question. He's involved in this now. And it's like, well, how? Like, why are you dealing with him?
Mm.
But I talked to somebody and they told me like nowadays it's as simple as you could be a stone cold rat, but if you can make money for people.
They're letting you around?
Nobody cares. Some people, nobody cares. Now, I'm not saying every one of them guys is like that because there's still some people in that life that, you know, are dead in the wool gangsters, but are they going to?
That's wild.
Yeah. And that's kind of the real concern that I have is just how as an organization can you continue like that? Because we've seen it just get brittled down through government scrutiny and all that sort of thing. And I think that's another thing. And we've seen that in life in general where values are gone now. I was listening, driving up here, I was listening to WIP.
Oh,
and they had Seth Joyner on who played for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling this really fascinating story about how when he was coming up as a player, anybody that could provide him some sort of guidance or advice, he would listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And he told a story about, I think it was maybe 10 or so years ago, he was an intern for the Bills. He was a linebacker intern. He was helping coach. Mm-hmm. And he went to the head coach, Rex Ryan at the time, or one of the Ryans, and said,
yeah, it was Rex.
Yeah, and he said, you know, we're not getting enough time with these kids, like where we can actually teach them something. Because nowadays the league, like everything's mandated practice-wise. And he asked the kids, he said, give me 15 minutes after practice. I just want to show you guys some things. He said the first day, they all came. They never came again. And he was kind of trying to explain how like kids today are just way different. Like the level of just like value and understanding of like older people and like values and ethics are just like kind of gone. And I relate it to kind of what we're talking about here because the gangsters that were coming up, you know, that you saw in the news from the 80s, you know, the John Gottis, the Chin Gigantes, those kind of people, they grew up significantly different than these younger kids today. These younger kids today didn't have to struggle for anything. They live in nice houses. They can run up bookie tabs and say, fuck you. You know who my father is? That's the best thing. When someone says that, you know who my father is?
Yeah, they're a little
like
pussy.
It's just a pussy move.
Yeah.
Like if you lose, you know, a good amount of money, I'm not saying you have to, you know, if you can't pay it back, you get on a fucking payment plan, you know, but to just like not pay it and be like, fuck you, you know,
you know who my dad is? That's crazy.
That's the kind of shit you're dealing with these people out here. And, you know, again, if there was an informant, I asked one guy, I said, I named the guy that is a known cooperator. He's on YouTube. I said, if he was in your neighborhood today and he can make money, would someone work with him? He said, without a doubt. They wouldn't even give a shit. There's no, you know.
Wow.
Because I think that's also the problem too, is there are certain guys in that life now that they don't have the ability to make money like some others. There are some guys that are rich construction tycoons and stuff like that. There are some guys that they might be a bookie or a loan shark, and it's not as easy for them now to make money doing that. You know, it's a lot different than it once was. The neighborhood's a little bit different. So they're kind of fighting hand to mouth. There are guys that are in that life today that are on Social Security. and it doesn't, that life doesn't stop. You still have to earn.
Yeah.
So like there are times where you become desperate. There was a case, it was about 10 years ago, a guy, Vincent Asaro. He was a Bonanno captain.
Yep, I remember this guy.
Vinny, yeah. Howard Beach guy. And throughout his life, Vinny Asaro always had gambling issues, big gambler. He was actually at one point in the 50s addicted to heroin. He beat it. But he'd always had that dependence on something. And he got older and he was still a button man, made guy. He was running out of Queens. And he was always this knockout guy where like he didn't have like construction and stuff like that. He was out breaking heads, doing what he had to do. And late in his life, he was about 80 years old. He had a younger crew. Like I'm talking about 20s. In fact, John Gotti's grandson was one of them. He was indicted for this. There's a guy, Gene Borello, as well. He's on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I talked to him once.
Yeah, they were doing stuff for Vinny, and in the end, they were doing some real crazy stuff, like running houses, pistol whipping people. There was one situation where Vinny Asaro was driving in Howard Beach on Cross Bay Boulevard and was cut off by a motorist, and he gets pissed. And he takes the license plate and goes and looks up the guy. He tells them to go light his car on fire. Oh. They go do it. And, in the end, long story short, they all got arrested. They were doing bank robberies, all sorts of stuff. And some of them cooperated. And Vincent Asaro's dependence on young associates who he could not trust and didn't know much about, they were hothead revolutionaries, did what they wanted. He ended up going to prison over that. He was in prison in his 80s. And, the desperation some of these people have is when you're desperate to do things, you maybe will do things that you're not normally going to do.
That's right.
I think it goes whether it's old or young. Some guys just think nobody's ever going to catch me. Yeah. But look at what we just talked about with the robbery of the deck shuffling machine. It's you're in your own car in texting. Literally one of the most surveilled cities on the planet.
Yep. You can't go anywhere in New York without being in some facial recognition.
And the thing
software.
is, like, you're not in even in maybe like Staten Island where like there's some trees or something. Like you're literally doing it in Midtown.
Yeah.
And that's I think the wildness of this. But in terms of like Damon Jones, we go back to some of the other
let's
stuff.
go to Jones and Rozier and really break that down. So I do have to say, when I saw this whole indictment, immediately everyone was talking about Billups, and yes, it's shocking. He's a sitting head coach in the NBA and all that. The name that I went, whoa, because it was tied to, things that had to do with games, was Damon Jones. And I say this lightly because people love just taking this like 6 levels up right away. The reason I went, woo, though, is because Damon Jones was a career role player who's been out of the NBA for a while now, who is LeBron James's maybe oldest friend in the NBA and one of his closest friends. And in this indictment, in the second indictment specifically, it mentions how Damon Jones, who is allowed full access, or at least was allowed full access to the Los Angeles Lakers locker room and everything in 2023, Damon Jones gave information on LeBron James as it pertained to an injury that then led to bets that were made. Now, does that mean LeBron James knew what Damon Jones was doing? Absolutely not. If I were a betting man, no pun intended, would I probably say that LeBron James didn't have any idea about that? Yeah. But it is not a good look for the NBA when the biggest name on the planet has a close buddy who's very intimately described in these indictments.
It actually goes back to, I interviewed Matt Boyer, who was a bookmaker for Shohei Ohtani's interpreter.
Can you explain that whole thing to people?
Yeah, so it goes hand in hand with this because I think it's kind of the same scrutiny level, right? Because Ohtani's this world-class baseball player, so is LeBron. Like, these guys are high-level athletes in it, But I asked Boyer, I said, you took millions of dollars in wagers from Ipe Muzihara. Did you A, ever meet Shohei Ohtani, and B, do you think he had any idea what was going on here?
What did he say?
He said he was at events and saw him across the hall or across the room, never really had any sort of conversation with him. Maybe hello, that's it. He said, as far as betting, do I think he knew that the guy was a bettor? Probably. Did he bet with him? No. And he told me that like Muzahara would always pay on the day that Dodgers payroll was paid.
Interesting.
Like it would always come at that point.
Meaning he was very confident that Shohei Ohtani.
Well, they were very good friends, these two. Like they were very close, like to the point that
Ohtani and
Muzahara, yeah. Like Muzahara was so close to Ohtani that he had control of his bank account. And like when Shohei would get paid, like Shohei had his own accounts for like promotions and stuff and like partnerships. But yeah, like when he would get paid, like he'd just get this big wire. And look, I don't, there's nothing wrong with being a good friend, you know?
No.
You know, if you have millions of dollars and your friend is in deep, you know, you'll help him. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of like LeBron in this situation, I think it's a similar one. And it's less even close to that because I think LeBron just happened to be someone that they knew would make money if he was out. And, you know, Damon Jones, like a scumbag, you know, gave out that info. Damon Jones was an assistant. And what's crazy about Damon Jones is like he was really like, he would do this stuff, like give information and then text him and be like, hey, make sure you get enough down so Dame can be taken care of here.
Crazy.
And then they would then send him Zells. Like
straight from the people. Can you go to the DL doc and type in Jones? Portland right there.
Yeah, it's all very
type in Jones. I want to read.
And it wasn't just LeBron either. It was Anthony Davis also. He's player 4 in this.
All right, hold on one sec. All right, here we go. Now type in to find next. Okay. The fraudulent wagering scheme in or about.
Salad down a little more, I think.
Down a little more?
I think is that it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in or about between December 22 and March 24, the defendants Eric Ernest, there he is again, Marvis Fairley, Shane Hennon, Damon Jones, De Niro Laster, and Terry Rozier, together with others, participate.
No, that's the actual broad one. There's actually a particular spot with Damon Jones where they go over his involvement.
All right, go up.
It's like they
go to the next one, Danny. Go to 7. There it is, the Portland Trailblazers game.
Billups.
No, it's Chauncey.
So
we already read that one. There's one where it's clear. Yeah. Orlando Magic. Nope, that's Cleveland. God damn, there were so many fucking games here. The last one.
I was way wrong on the number. There we go.
Okay, by virtue... Why did that not come up the first time? All right, by virtue of his relationship with Player 3, the Lakers, and other NBA personnel, the defendant, Damon Jones, had access to non-public information, including medical information that had not been released to the public. This is for the February 9th, 2023 and January 15th, 2024 games. On multiple occasions during the 22-23 and 23-24 NBA seasons, including as early as approximately December 2022, Jones sold or attempted to sell for profit non-public information to others, including to the defendants Eric Ernest and Marvis Fairley and others, for the purpose of causing or enabling them to place fraudulent wagers based on the non-public information. For example, on or about February 9, 2023, the Lakers played the Milwaukee Bucks. On the morning of the February 9th game, the defendant Damon Jones sent a text message to co-conspirator 9, writing, Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the information is out.
It's insane.
Player 3 is out tonight. That's probably referring to LeBron James, could be Anthony Davis. Bet enough so D. Jones can eat too now. At the Times, Jones provided this non-public information about Player 3 to co-conspirator 9. Player 3 was not ruled out of the NBA's injury report for the February 9th game due to a lower body injury. Player 3 did not play the February 9th game, which the Lakers lost. On multiple occasions during the 23-24 season, including in connection with the January 15-24 game between the Lakers and Oklahoma City Thunder, Damon Jones and Eric Ernest sold or attempted to sell to the defendant Marvis Fairley non-public information for the purpose of causing or enabling Fairley to place wagers on the non-public information. In exchange, Fairley agreed to pay Jones via Ernest. Player 4, an individual whose identity is known to the grand jury, was one of the Lakers' best players during the 23-24 season. Prior to January 15th game, the defendant Damon Jones claimed to have learned from the trainer for Player 3 and 4 that Player 4 was injured and was only going to play a limited number of minutes and or his performance would likely be affected in the game because of the injury. Jones shared this non-public information with Ernest, who then sent a text message to Fairley saying, "Hit me ASAP, got one for you, dude. He got some info." Ernest then shared the non-public information about Player 4 with Fairley. Fairley paid Jones approximately $2,500 through an intermediary via a peer-to-peer mobile payment platform accompanied by the message fee. And it's only $2,500. Let me just pause 1 sec, Jeff. I want to tell these guys to stop drilling next door, and then we'll get your reaction on this.
Sounds good.
All right, we're back. So I read all that information right there. Download Mr. Nadu.
I mean, I'm always fascinated by both criminals and somewhat pretend criminals. Even regular people, like the things you go to lie about, and a lot of it's just like, do you know how easy it is to fake? It's like when a person's cheating on their spouse. Like they do such stupid things.
Yes.
Like any like peewee detective could figure it out.
That's what I'm saying. Look at this. Look at the text. Dude.
Yeah, and it's like, this is why like I'm not really going to give the FBI credit for much, but like they don't really need to be that like particularly good investigators to find this shit out. When you have resources like that, it's like it's literally just right there.
Yeah. Why do you think that? Because all these games happened. The poker thing goes back as far as 2019, and then the games happen in 23, 24. Is this just a matter of like they didn't have the whistle blown for this until recently? Because I would think a case like this doesn't take that long to put together. Yeah, so maybe the poker one does a little bit, but the sports betting one's pretty straightforward.
Well, I think in terms of what I'm about to tell you, my theory is, and I say this because I have documents, and I wish I could have spoke to him before, but I have a connection that was involved with one of these people. There's a guy in both of these indictments named Shane Hennon.
Okay.
Goes by Sugar Shane.
Sugar Shane.
Yeah, so Shane is similar in a way to Marvis Fairley. He's a sports betting tout kind of guy, a poker player. He's very close with Ammar Awadi, which is also in this indictment. Shane is a guy who in the late 2000s was selling cocaine and was arrested by the feds, and he cooperated. He was a government witness, so much to the point that the person that he flipped against filed a motion that his witness testimony should be suppressed because of, some of the things in the case. So this is a government informant. Okay? It's proven. Okay. Number one, and this goes back to money. Why are we dealing with people like this?
Crazy.
Okay. So my thought is, and I think in essence it will come out. And like there's a guy in like the mob reporting world. I believe he's even talked about it. I think it's abundantly clear that Shane Hennon has been a long time informant, and he's served these cases up on a silver platter to the feds.
But he's listed as a defendant here.
Right.
For now.
Every rat's listed as a defendant at one point.
Yeah, and meaning they didn't make it, he's not a John Doe that they made the case with and aren't listing here.
Right. And when I also want to make one thing clear. When I say rat, like I probably should say informant. It's just easier to say and it's quicker and whatever.
It's more fun.
I'm not a mob guy, so I shouldn't say that. But he is, for all intents and purposes, we have paperwork that he's an informant. He testified in the case. It's so simple to find. You could just Google Shane Hennon cocaine, and it's like the third thing on Google.
Let's do it. Shane Hennon cocaine.
Yeah, he testified in a case against a person, Franco Bedini, out in Western Pennsylvania.
Cocaine.
And then
cocaine.
Yeah, cocaine.
Yeah, put cocaine on the end of that. Well, that's not him. That's a different Shane Hennon.
So there's going to be, if you go down a little bit, and maybe it's not.
Well, now it's probably all
there's the Villanova
over.
University.
Oh, right USA versus Franco Bedini. There it is. 2013.
Now you have to go down a little bit. I don't know the exact page, but there's a part in this in a motion where
type in Hennon to find next.
Yes, that would be perfect.
H-E, what was it?
N-N-E-N.
Yep. Okay. So Bedini next argues that the conviction should be reversed. This is an appeal, I guess, because the district court improperly admitted testimony of government witness Shane Hennon, who testified that he had bought and sold drugs with Bedini in transactions unrelated to the conspiracy involving Curran.
Okay, so what more do we need to see?
Yeah,
this is a government witness. Okay, yeah. Now when you are a government witness, okay, there are multiple levels of a government witness, but there are, and anybody that knows anything about the FBI knows this. There are hundreds of thousands of informants in this country right now that are being paid to make cases against people. Shane Hennon is also a known cheater. Okay, he's involved in poker, sports betting, all that stuff. And his name's popped up in the Jonte Porter case. His name's popped up in this case and in that other sports betting Terry Rozier rig thing.
He's in that too?
Yes. He's in that as well.
What's his role in that?
He benefits off the information like Marvis Fairley. He goes and makes wagers.
How about the fact, by the way, sorry to go off the side here, but how about the fact Damon Jones, for example, is making $2,500 for information?
Well, I think that could be just, I don't know if that's the only, he maybe was paid more.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I think the biggest question that in all of this people will ask is like, why were they doing this? And I think it really just probably started as they like to gamble. They probably got in it like Porter, a little too deep. And they said, look, like, work it off another way.
Right.
You know?
You know who had...
We're amongst friends here because all these people, we found most of these people know each other.
Yeah.
Like whether it's Billups, Eric Ernest, like all these people know each other.
They're directly connected. But there was a very interesting interview with Michael Porter, Jonte's brother, a few months back where he was very candid. You know, obviously he had nothing to do with what his brother was doing and all that. But of course he was asked about it because it's his brother. And he said, he's like, you know, legalized gambling itself is one thing, but when you do it and then have it so close to the sport itself where you're hand in hand, where the NBA, for example, has partnerships with all this stuff, you are inviting these kinds of things to happen. Now, his brother was a situation like the most kind of extreme. Like he was a gambler. He got in debt to people. He got in debt to dangerous people. They said, take a fall as the ninth man. We'll put some prop bets on it, and then got fucked. But he's like, even what Michael was saying is even less than that. Like someone that gets in trouble and then can do something where they're coerced to do it. It's like you are inviting people to just, you know, fuck around and open up a DraftKings account and then make the wrong bet sometimes. And then the entire integrity of the sport is put into question. And I got to say, it was hard for me to make arguments against what he was saying as it pertains to the direct partnerships between the two.
Well, I will say, like, in terms of that as a discussion, number one, I probably say on a weekly basis, people DM me and say, like, if you were a novice gambler, how would you do this? Or I want to get into this. Can you give me information on how to do it? And I always tell them, like if someone asked me, would I redo everything I've done as far as would I gambled this long, that sort of thing, there's nothing good in it, really. If you're going to gamble, it can start it's like drugs. You can start with just doing weed. And then you're like, you know what? Coke looks pretty fun.
Yep.
And like gambling for most people is it's something you can control. I'm sure everybody here has gambled. But then you start maybe deciding, you know what, I want to bet more. And you bet more. And then it's like, well, I've been a gambler, so maybe I'll start taking bets or something else. And it's, before you know it, when you are around people, my mother used to talk to me about this when I would go to casinos and I was a kid, like I was 18, 19 years old. And she would say something and I never really thought about it. And then when I got older, I realized, oh, she was so right. She called casinos dens of iniquity.
Dens of iniquity.
Yeah, and it essentially just means that look at everything that goes on in a casino. Look at the people that go there for the most part. It's for the most part a place where very little good happens. And it's something I didn't really ever think about, but you know, it's no secret that if you start gambling and sports betting and playing poker, you're going to be eventually around characters. And in terms of what Michael said, like I think he's 100% right. You know, before Password was introduced, like gambling was the backroom thing that it used to be, and it wasn't involved so heavily. But the way you stop this is number one, and what makes this really bad for these defendants in the sports case is they're going to drop the hammer on them and say, look, you fuck around with this shit, this is what's going to happen to you.
Yep.
So Porter, banned for life, gone. These people, similar. It's going to be something really bad for them. And you look at someone like Billups, you know, Chauncey, as you stated, you were very correct. He was one of the best players he was a great player when he was with Detroit and some of those teams. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. His career and legacy could be ruined. And they're through no fault. They're through his own fault. Throw in, if you want to eliminate this, which they'll never do, stop allowing people to bet on props. That's really
how would you like just in general?
Yeah,
just ban all props.
Yeah, I'm not.
But
saying
that would cut out the legs
of
the industry, right?
Right.
They make a lot of money on that.
Yeah, and that's the sad denouement that we're at here, because these companies, they don't want to lose any money,
right?
But then when this stuff happens, it's like we're not involved, and it's like
now.
Well,
but again, it's interesting, and we'll find this out once they actually start presenting the case. But if the companies are also doing the, I don't know, like honorable thing or what they're supposed to do, where they are reporting this when it happens, then they would have a good argument to say, look, we're doing our job. We don't want to see any illegal gambling, so we're reporting it. And then you guys go make the case and deter people in the future from doing it.
That's the interesting thing about, like, when people talk about shoes to drop, like, because we see the feds do this a lot, where they'll go gung-ho and stuff, and they'll try to make a proclamation. If you do this, this is what's going to happen, and we're going to have the dope on the table type thing, which they did with Cash Patel and this whole thing. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to investigate, because as I told you, if you are betting and if you're involved with the sports betting stuff and you know some of these investigations are going on, it'll be interesting to see if something comes from those investigations where they were just sitting on it and building their case, and we get another indictment involving college, and then we get another indictment involving this and that. Or they just do this, set an example to a couple of people.
Yep.
They then start, hey, you got to stop with this.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll see. But this is bad for these people. If they are either found guilty or they plea and they accept the responsibility, they're fucked.
What kind of prison time you think if they accept responsibility? Like a year or two kind of deal?
I don't know that. I think that's also something, like, I keep kind of going off, but like this case, like, outside of the violence that we talked about and with some of the mob guys, most of these charges are pretty weak. I mean, as far as, like, you're not going to get like years in prison for this. Right. Like a simple bookmaking charge, like you take bets. I mean, a lot of time you're not even going to go to jail over that.
Yeah, but rigging a game, which is robbery.
I would, and that's another question. Like, and I heard someone mention this. Like, do gamblers come together and file a class action lawsuit against? Because to be fair, if I bet on these games, I was fucking cheated.
Yeah.
They had information I didn't.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when you have a cop that is corrupt, it taints every case.
That's right.
Every game that Mr. Billups or Rozier or any of these was involved in could have been tainted.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting too, to see if there's some sort of class action lawsuit against some of the, whoever it's against, where gamblers try to get something out of it. Like I said, to stop this, if you eliminated props, I think that would help, but they're not going to do that. That's such a huge part of their business and their market share. But because like I said, it's harder to fix a game, like a point spread.
What about the fact that, so like Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, is now being called before Congress to discuss this. And one of the things that he's going to get drilled about is the fact that they did, and they were very public about it, did an investigation specifically into Terry Rozier, and 4 months ago cleared him of all wrongdoing. And you and I both know, when it comes to like the NFL, NBA, and these major leagues, when they have an investigation done, the people that they have doing this are like ex-CIA, ex-FBI, like serious, the highest powered four-name law firms in America, basically. And so, not to say that guarantees they're going to get everything right, but when you publicly say, we're investigating someone, go through this whole investigative process, probably throw a lot of money at it too, of course throw a lot of money at it, and then publicly say, no, he's good, only for something like this that seems, in hindsight, painfully obvious to come out months later. Do you think that is the kind of thing that will lead to like an Adam Silver being forced to step down?
Yeah, I mean, he's really got some explaining to do with that, because again, like you said, you should believe in the, oversight of the NBA and their backroom people that are doing this stuff, the security. And this is why, like, when you look at someone like, that guy Big Dom,
I was just,
Eagles
you took
guy,
the words out of my mouth.
Like, that's why I think he's gotten so much like love in America, because he is really good at that.
Oh, dude, I've heard some stories.
Like he's particularly efficient at finding negative things to sway people away from a particular person. He does a very good job at security. they should learn a little something from him. I mean, and you mentioned like some of the 3 other organizations that maybe work with these places. I think one thing I learned in doing the mob stuff that I do and like talking and getting sources and stuff is that like the FBI, like they watch my show. Like I know more about the mob than they do. You know, it's like, and it makes you wonder sometimes, I think. like I'm sure on your show, on the Julian Dorey show, I'm sure you've put out stuff that the FBI is like, we didn't know that. Like
maybe
if you don't think the FBI watches these shows,
I know for a fact like, whenever you have an ex-Intel guy on here, they have a department where they probably don't watch it. They probably have AI to scan it.
But they literally, even local police departments, the New York City Police Department, and that's not local, but that's a huge police department. They have literally a group, like a squad called the Internet Squad. They basically just watch shit on the internet and try to find crime. Like, if they're doing this, you don't think they're watching you, me? They watch this stuff. So I think my thought and what I'm saying there is like, I don't know, maybe the NBA is just getting the worst agents that weren't really good. And I don't know who looked into this case, but they're going to be fired, I would have to imagine. And because they have real egg on their face here, because the thought is you ran this investigation, you gave us clearance, but we've also seen that like the NFL, they do investigations into people. And, you know, it's like, well, how are you seeing this? Like this guy was charged with this. How did, you know? Yeah,
the one I can think of on the NFL that blew up in their face was Ray Rice because the video wasn't out. But they just mishandled it and they should have punished him much more than they did. But I believe they had access to it and they did suspend him 6 games and say he was clearly guilty of this. So at least they weren't like, oh no, nothing happened here. But it was a bad look because then people saw the video and they're like, all domestic violence is bad. That's like that's like the worst
video you could see.
Yeah, I mean, it was horrific.
But I also think too that and I want to, this should be the most important thing that we say here today, because I've been on your show and I've said this before, and I want to make clear, everything alleged in this indictment is alleged. And these people should be awarded their day in court. Yes. Just like, you know, I was on your show last time. I was 1 for 1. Koberger I was wrong on. Diddy I was absolutely right on.
Yeah, you were right about Diddy. You were right about another one, and then wrong about Koberger. Yeah. What was the other one you were right about?
I don't remember, but what I'm leaning towards is like we obviously see that these are pretty strong charges, and I would imagine that this is a federal case, which is different from state. The feds, as we've talked about before, look at how much information is here. The case is already delivered. And that's why you see the 98% conviction rate. It's not that they convict every person. It's literally 90% of the 98% plea.
Right.
And that's counted as a conviction.
Right.
So they're going to come to a lot. Like most of these defendants, where they're 31 in the poker indictment, I would have to venture to believe that 3 or 4 will cooperate, maybe more, and the rest will plead. I don't think one of these people will go to trial.
I think you're probably going to be right about that also, because they have... I mean, the text message data is insane, especially on not the poker one, but on the other one. That data is so, it's not circumstantial.
But in that case,
1 + 1 + 1 = 3.
But in that case, you have higher profile names with more money, and they're going to state, we didn't do this, and we'll prove to you we didn't do it.
We're going to see, though, if they have the superseding indictment where then Billups' name, and then maybe, who knows, there's no evidence of this right now, but some other people as well. And it could turn very bad, and this could be a culture shifting event. Because like you mentioned some of the college stuff and allegedly maybe some investigations going on into that. I believe we definitely talked about this. I can't remember if it was off air or on air. I think it was on air when in episode 301 when we were here together. We talked about like NIL, and I told you what my theory on this has been, and I can't say I'm right or wrong yet, but I'm looking a little better every day, is that you had all these old dudes at the NCAA who profited off all these kids for free forever and said, fuck you, anytime someone wanted to just, go make money at an ice cream store for, an appearance. And then finally the public pressure got so heavy that they had to give in. And my thought was they sat in their back office and said, okay, you want it? we'll give you all of
and now it's open season.
And now it's open season, and you mix it into where you have things where gambling is directly supported, and you have fucking 18 and 19-year-old kids who are, by definition, not bright at that age with decision making. It's like, what the fuck do you think could happen?
In terms of the college, and I will not put names, but I've heard big names, like bigger type players that either were pro or whatever. If it comes out, it'll be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think what this will do, these cases, is it does give, like, everyone's now on notice. And if you keep doing this, you're doubly as stupid. Yeah. There's a lot of scrutiny. Throw in, like I said, I have it on pretty good authority that already people are flipping over this case. And like I said, Shane Hennon,
mobsters or
no, not mobsters. Yeah, a lot of the poker sports betting people. But like Shane Hennon, it would probably be a pretty strong indication that, he's involved. He's done it before. He's cooperated before. And like a lot of these guys, they'll just go to them and say, "Look, man, like we got you here." There's a bunch of mob guys in here that will just say, "What are you offering? I'm not cooperating." Right. Okay, well, you can go to trial. We'll give you football numbers if you get guilty. Or you can just take 3 years.
Right.
Plead, boom, boom, game over. For these mob guys, this is a small pinch. This ain't a big thing.
Yeah, they're just annoyed by the public scrutiny because of the names attached.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like, that's what's wild about this is like I said earlier, if it was one or the other, like if it was just Billups, right? And like there was no mob involved, I don't think it would be as big a story. It would be a big story. I
agree 100%.
But and like the mob, if there was no Billups involved or any NBA thing, it would just be a poker.
It would still be a big story because he's a sitting coach. But the allure and sexiness for a headline of adding in the fucking Mafia, like this is the Godfather with the NBA.
Well,
bad look.
And it also is bad for like some of these people. Like Joe Lonnie is listed here. And I mentioned him earlier. Like Joe Lonnie 2 weeks ago
pled
guilty in federal court. He was initially offered 15 years. He declined, got a better deal. So he's going to he's going to probably get, I would say 72-ish months, maybe more. It's like 6 years.
Yeah.
And Joe's aged pretty badly over the last year or two.
Yeah, he's got to be in his 70s, right?
No, I think he's
Low
like
70s?
Early 60s. But I mean in aging, like he looks a lot different than he did just a year or two ago. Sorry. Yeah. But then he gets hit with this case, and it's like it was just literally like a 2-week thing. Now he's gonna have to face another case.
Yeah.
So it was a particularly bad week for him.
What was the case? Because it's a great example. You were one of the few guys even that really talked about it. But this was in the last year where all the guys in Wayne, New Jersey, connected to the mob were taken out. What were they charged with again? Yeah,
so that was that was kind of funny because that case was almost really similar to this one.
Was it gambling?
It was poker games and bookmaking, and it was a state case out of New Jersey, the Attorney General. And that's what's wild now. Like most of the cases we see are state cases against the mob. The feds really have not made the mob a priority. It's New York State, Letitia James, and like her people, and then in New Jersey, they've been making the cases. And yeah, it was a series of poker games that are hosted in like the northern New Jersey area. And a couple of the guys ensnared were big people. And one of the guys, George Zapola, he's a rumored administration member. He's on the top levels of that family. So, there was a sitting councilman, I believe, out of one of the areas up here, maybe near Newark somewhere.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, but like that case, nobody even heard about.
Yeah.
There was a case in 2024 with the Gambino crime family, same group here.
Yeah.
They were jammed up in a $20 million gambling ring. They were taking $22 million in wagers. They had loan sharking, all sorts of stuff. Did you hear about it?
Nope. Didn't have Chauncey Billups on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like if I'm an old timer, I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck are you assholes? Right. And what's crazy is Chauncey Billups, in terms of these guys, none of these mob guys even knew him. Right. Like it was just lumped in because they all, like when you have an indictment, a lot of the time, like you don't even know some people. Like I'm going to guess that like I don't know, Lee Fama probably didn't know some of these people.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of different people, a lot of different
But you see a lot of crossover too, because
Yeah.
like Lee Fama, alleged made guy. His uncle is a big, or not his uncle, his brother's a big timer in that Gambino family. He's also a big time poker player. He plays poker, won tournaments. He's kind of a weird in a way conduit. So the thought of this, the rigging these games, it just didn't have to happen. And they got greedy and now they're in an international investigation with the NBA and I think going to have a lot of scrutiny. And now a group that wants to stay quiet, the mob.
Now they're in the press.
Now they're in the press.
It's a bad look. The other thing that happened on this that could absolutely be nothing, that was just very interesting to me, is Chauncey Billups gets arrested. He gets arraigned, and he walks out of, I think it was the courthouse after, he left on his own volition. And he's wearing a Clutch Sports hoodie. And I'm like, of all the pieces of clothing you could have picked up that morning, you picked up the one that was like LeBron's agency, where he's got one of his friends in this case. Was that a bat signal?
I think this is one thing about the world now that I get kind of annoyed with, is that everything's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And it's like people have to start putting themselves in the position. So when that happens, it's literally still dark out. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're with your wife in bed. She probably doesn't know shit. You get that knock on the door. And like we go back to the dope on the table type thing. They also have something where they want to parade you out in front of everybody. Now, they didn't do this necessarily here, but I'm going to guess that Mr. Billups was arrested quite early in the morning. And that could have just happened to be the sweatshirt. If he was wearing some Sean John, not that that's popular.
Right.
Will we connect him to Diddy?
Right.
If he wore a Donald Trump hoodie, would Donald Trump be involved?
Right.
I think it's an easy thing. And those people are so famous, like the LeBron James
I
of the
think
world.
you're probably right.
Like we connect everything. Look, was it a statement? I know when I come here, like there's certain things I'm not going to wear, but I'm not like, because again, I have to think about like, I'm going to be on a show for 3 hours. I'm not going to just sit here and wear some advertiser that's not paying me, So like, I think a little bit about it, but like if I was arrested by the feds, I've gotten not that knock on the door, but like a constable came to my house once and it was early in the morning and I just grabbed whatever I could see first just so I could answer the door.
Right.
So it's like, I think that's kind of what happened here. Now, if it was choreographed, maybe there's a message there. I don't know. I don't think it was.
You have to. I'm with you. I don't think it's anything, but like it was just kind of like a little cherry on. On top of the sundae kind of thing.
And to piggyback off that, Gilbert Arenas started trolling in this because Gilbert
did. I didn't see.
Well, yeah, because Gilbert was arrested about 6 months ago in a poker game thing. Also,
yes,
and according to some people that I talked to, they told me that Gilbert owned the home and he essentially rented the house out and they were running poker games there. So Gilbert got jammed up. And Gilbert, had been trolling recently and people, I did some videos on this. You don't know how many people, Gilbert's a snitch, Gilbert's this, Gilbert's that. And it's like, I don't think these cases are totally separate. They have nothing to do with each other, but it's easy to connect the dots. And like, nowadays, like when you post stuff, like there's always going to be someone that mentions that EPSTEI guy that got, that mentioned. Everybody works for some shadowy government. Like you have those people. I just think there are certain groups of people that are conspiracy theorists.
Yeah. My issue is that it's fun to talk about some of them for sure. Like, when you're just sitting on a fucking podcast and shooting the shit, but there is a large swath of the population that thinks that every fucking thing ever was a conspiracy. And that feels like that is programming to me because there are real conspiracies and there are real powerful people who do those things. And if I wanted to discredit the masses from being able to point out conspiracies, I would make sure that I turn them into loons pretending like, throwing a fucking piece of meat into a pile of dogs just to watch them rip each other apart so that the real conspiracies could kind of be tucked away in the middle of all the clear bullshit. And I worry about that because I get it. You know, people lived through COVID. They saw things that were fucking insane. I totally get it. I saw the same things. I have a lot of the same thoughts on those things. But it's like you have to still look at things on evidence. When people talk about Epstein, the evidence there is insane, right?
Well, that's the problem that I have in like, and that's the challenge, I think, in even doing some of this stuff and like talking about cases is like people are programmed now to just believe what they're told.
Yes.
And I saw a quote once, and I think it's one of the more prophetic quotes I've ever seen. It's by this old writer, and she made a quote once and stated that all you need is one group of people to brainwash a generation that reality doesn't exist.
Yes.
And I think what we've seen, and there's that meme of that KGB agent talking about,
of course,
the warfare,
ideological subversion.
Yeah, and you don't need a bullet; you just need, that subversion of things.
Yes.
And like, and I saw it so profoundly in that Diddy case. It is really, look. I'm not gonna. I said that in the episode before. I'm not gonna try to tell you that Diddy is not, a scumbag who beat up Cassie. We saw that.
Yes,
he's a bad guy for that, and he should always have to remember and be told that. But was he a person who trafficked people? No. But he was made to believe that I know people very close to me that brought up child sex crime. There's none of that here.
And this is where you nailed it on the case, because you were looking at the indictments and what they were bringing, then you were looking at it once they presented it in court, and I can't think of anything you were wrong about. The thing is, like, do I think Diddy is probably a scumbag? Definitely a scumbag for sure. Do I think that it's probable that he probably did do things like sex trafficking and stuff like that? Yes. Did they prove any of that in that case, or did they even bring charges that made sense to prove something like that? No, they didn't.
And they overcharged him badly, and certain people lost their jobs because of it.
Yeah.
And I think when you look into the high-profile cases like this one, like that, you look into Mangione, prime example there as well. I think I stated this on your show.
That was the other one you were right about a lot of things on.
It is, and I'm no attorney. I mean, I'm sure you talk to attorneys.
Yeah, I had Jesse Weber on here.
Yeah, even I think he'll tell you.
Jesse Weber and you had almost the same exact takeaways.
But it's an insane idea that the federal government in the eastern southern districts are prosecuting a lone murder charge. That never happens. The only time they charge murder is an overt act in some sort of racketeering case. So let's say the mafia whacks somebody and it's part of a racketeering case. Racketeering, murder in the aid of racketeering. One lone insular murder charge, why is the feds even involved in that case? It's headlines. They wanted that, remember the shot where he's handcuffed?
Yeah, like it was walking off the Arkham helicopter? Asylum.
Yeah. And what I think they're not realizing is it's going against them. And I'm not going to tell you that I don't know if Luigi's guilty or not guilty. The evidence seems pretty bad against him. But what you're doing is you're taking groups of people that feel marginalized, whether it be younger people, poor people, people that hate insurance companies. You're marginalizing them and saying, this is a bad guy. And what's the problem is he's a good looking guy. Young people like him.
Wait, what do you mean marginalized?
You're basically like, you put it out there that he's a bad guy, he's a murderer, which he could be. But what you're in a way doing is he's then, in his defense, coming out and saying, I did this because something in my life happened and an insurance company fucked me. And that's why I did this. And there's a certain group of people that are saying, you know what? My grandma died because of an insurance company.
I see what you're saying.
I've been fucked by insurance too. And there are most people in America, I don't know if you take 20 people off the street, my guess is more than half would say, I'm not a big fan of the government. Right?
Yes.
So what we're starting to find is in this day and age, there's more people that are sympathetic to a person like Luigi Mangione.
I see what you're saying.
And it's like, fuck the government. Look at what they're doing to this guy. Do I think it's right to celebrate him? Look, insurance companies are bad. Is that guy that was killed, he's not the scapegoat. What he allegedly did, he screwed up. But it almost seems like you do all that stuff, you mask yourself up, and then you keep the gun. How does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
and they paint him as a crazed nutcase.
And hopefully we're gonna actually find out some truth. I have some doubts on that, but It's a simple situation here. You can look at the insurance industry and say it's a disgrace, and it totally is. Completely agree. I've seen that paying on my own when I had my health problems. Now extrapolate that to someone who has fucking cancer, or like something that's actually it's insane.
And I told you this when I came here on 301. I think it's going to be really hard to find 12 impartial jurors.
Yeah.
Because that is such a problem in America of someone, I'm sure everyone here, anyone out in the street you talk to, they've had some sort of run-in with car insurance or medical insurance or whatever. And that's the thing about federal cases. Like you've got to, or any case really, whether someone did something or not, fair, you have to prove in court. Like in federal cases, there are people that I know that absolutely said to me, under a shadow of a doubt, I did not do this, but I can't prove it. So I'm gonna just plead guilty and hopefully they don't give me too many times. Yeah. You know, that's the crazy thing. So,
but Jeff, you should be able to say that the scumbaggery of the healthcare insurance industry. I like that.
I use that word a lot.
But like that's entirely the case, and also the government deserves a lot of blame in that too for that system being fucked and a hand-feeding hand system for a long time. All that's true. You can also say that therefore there are some people in that industry who are just not good people. Whether or not this CEO is one of them or not, I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
but like maybe. We also live in a society though where like basic standards have to be the case for this to not be Mad Max Fury Road. And when you have a dude taking a fucking city bike down 57th Street to whack a guy on security camera at 6:30 a.m. in the morning in the biggest city in the country because he runs a company that he doesn't like, the precedent of that is not good. In any way you look at it.
But what I'm trying to point out here, and I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist, we just talked about how I'm really not, but we do have to remember, we see a guy doing this. We don't see his face. We don't have any idea if that's him. That's why it doesn't make sense. Like you did all that stuff, but you kept the gun? You kept the bag? Why? Why did you go through the method of masking up and stuff? All to just keep the gun? Like, there's just things about it. But what my point is in all of bringing up this is we go back to this case because this is also out of the largest, like Eastern Southern District. These are the biggest districts for the federal government, and the courts in this country are in New York City. And I heard a lot of people, you look at Kaya Kash Patel. I'm not going to say I like or dislike him, but he couldn't even pronounce these families' names. And it's like, you hear some of these people talking about like the mafia was involved in point. No, they're not. There's no defendant. The word mafia is never in that sports betting indictment.
Not once.
No, there's no mention of the word mob, mafia, La Cosa Nostra, which by the way, it's Cosa Nostra. La Cosa Nostra does not make sense in the Italian language. Yeah. If you read that fucking indictment, there is not one mention of the mob in it. There is no mob defendant in it. There is no associate in it, nothing. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So it's like
that's indictment 2, right?
Yeah,
Rosier.
Yeah. There's that's what I'm trying to say. Like it almost seemed like, and I tweeted this, Kash Patel doesn't even understand the case he's prosecuting.
That wouldn't be the first time.
It's like he's just out there, and I've also heard people say like, this administration, every administration has axe to grind with certain people. I heard a conspiracy theory that I think it was Stephen A. said that this is the Trump administration getting back at the kneeling and all that kind of stuff. So he's sending his Justice Department after them. Now, I don't believe that. But
I actually don't believe that either.
No, but like Stephen A.'s talking about this is what's going to happen in sports. And it's like, so I would just tell anybody that sees these big cases, most of the time these are public indictments. Yeah. Go on. You don't even have to print it out. Just read through it a little bit.
Right.
Because like someone said to me on my show I did the other day, it was so amazing. And it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, really just read it. I did a little research on who Shane Hennon was, and I found out he was a cooperator. In a previous case, I know about some of these defendants. So it kind of just all pieced together. Sure. And, I would just tell everyone do I think Chauncey Billups knew Mafia members? No, I don't. I don't think he ever met one.
Makes a great story though.
And why let the truth get in the way of a good one?
That's right. Steve Buscemi, season 1.
Yeah. I think, It'll be interesting to see what happens next. Is there another indictment? Are there people involved? Is there a college one that comes out? I have to wonder, though, if these people in this cohort that weren't arrested and they're still out doing this shit.
This could be it, and hopefully it's not just for the sake of.
Well, let me ask you.
It could be the tip of the iceberg.
Let's say you were a cheater, like you were involved in the sports betting world, and you were doing this, and this happened. Would you keep doing it?
Absolutely not.
Right. So you'd hope that it's some sort of diversion?
Yeah. I mean, best case scenario. Yeah. It's going to get interesting, though. I hope that this is, like I said, not the tip of the iceberg, and I hope we actually do get some more information beyond just, the 23 pages here in this indictment and however many pages are in the other, because it'll be interesting to see, in court, even if it doesn't go to trial, but if there's information out there that kind of clears up who was actually involved with who, that goes beyond what, people are making with headlines right now.
And it's just simple, really, it's just simple looking up things like the connection between De Niro Laster, who was from Ohio, and Terry Rozier, who went to high school in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these people, like I said, were friends. And I think in terms of the worst things for this, the basketball players and coaches, they're going to have real problems because, again, that whole business is about integrity and, being a,
Yeah. There was a guy, you remember Faye Vincent? He was the commissioner before Bud Selig in the MLB.
Okay, yeah, it was a while back. That was like the 90s.
89 to 92. So Faye Vincent, my grandfather knew him. And so I knew Faye Vincent when I was growing up. He was a great man. The guy wrote, like a letter in my support for some stuff later in my life. Just an amazing, amazing guy. And he didn't give a fuck what people thought of him because he was not viewed as popular because, among other things, he was the guy who kicked out Pete Rose from baseball for life. And what I will say, Faye Vincent died earlier this year, so rest in peace to him. But what I respected...
So did Pete Rose, actually.
They both did. That was interesting. But what I respected a lot about Faye Vincent was he looked at it truly like the integrity of the game. And the integrity of the game involved people in America being able to have a family event that they go to and watch the greatest at their sport compete in an honest way, and where crime doesn't get involved and where problems that, would affect that experience don't get involved. And with what I never could understand when I was younger, and I get it now just because, I guess like you get a little wiser when you get older, but I could never understand why Faye Vincent didn't say some of the things publicly that he would say, that I would hear him say behind the scenes. And I'll say one of them now. He used to tell me that he had no intention of kicking Pete Rose out for life. He went to Pete. They had him dead to rights. There was no question here. Like, they knew for a fact he had done this and it was a problem. And everyone loved Pete Rose. He was an amazing player and, and a fucking legend and played the game the right way, all these things. And he and Bart Giamatti, at the time it was first starting, Bart was still alive. He was Faye Vincent's close friend and the commissioner before him. He had a heart attack during this investigation and died suddenly, Paul Giamatti's father. But they went to Pete and they just said, hey, we got you. You fucked up. This is bad. You're going to be punished. But, just tell the truth and you'll get kicked out of the game for a few years. We will rehabilitate your image, rehabilitate the game's image, and you will be able to have some dignity and eventually get into the Hall of Fame and stuff. And he told them to go fuck themselves. And he wouldn't admit to anything. And he lied. The things he would do behind the scenes, some of that stuff, I'll let him take to the grave with him. And it's like, this is a guy. Now I see what's happening now with sports and some of that integrity just being so blatantly affected. And that is exactly why he had the stance that he did, because this cannot fucking stand. This is horrible.
And you can't blame him for that. And that's why I said you're going to have to set an example here with the punishments here, particularly in the NBA, because you need to get a handle on this. I mean, the Jonte Porter stuff kind of opened that all. And, look, Jonte was, a lower level player, but it doesn't matter. You have to nip it in the bud.
That's right.
And this was going on during that. But now you almost, I don't know if you have a clean slate. Do I think more NBA players would be picked up for this? I don't think. I truly don't believe there's a lot of of professionals that are involved in this type of thing. I think if there's anyone that would be involved in some of the recent stuff as far as with the college and stuff, I think that's more of like your lower level programs.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, we saw the investigations into that. So
yeah. I think the guys who it's always going to be, regardless of what the platform is, whether it's the actual pros in the NBA where they're making X number of money, or kids in college making Y number of money, the lower ends of those platforms, the people that are on the edges that are most vulnerable are the ones that could get caught up in this kind of thing.
And the thing that they tell you about gambling, but they don't really want to tell you, but they have to tell you, but it's most important. This is why anybody that listens to this, I'm sure most people that do gamble, you got to do it responsibly, because eventually you could be put in a situation where, you can't get out of it, or you're having to work for some people you don't want to be around. These people here, most of them are dead in the wool. They are scam artists, cutthroat motherfuckers, and that's just who they are.
Right.
Most people aren't like that though. But this is who you have to deal with. Just people you don't want to deal with.
Right.
And it is also a shame to me too, because like I do know of people that went to these games and they told me like, they're fun. We had a great time. There was a lot of good people in them. It's just, I think they got a little too, involved. And again, some of these people are really bad. Like some of them are some of the biggest scammers in the country. They owe millions of dollars. They would steal from you for your last dollar. Right. So when you gamble, sometimes you got to get involved with this. Stick to just having fun. Don't try to be the next,
right,
Stu Feiner or something.
Well, even Stu talked about that, man.
And he will. He'll tell you the same shit. I'm sure he went into the stories he had to deal with. And Stu's a really sweet guy, man. I've met him many times at Barstool, and he'll tell you. I'm sure he would tell his own kids, stay out of this shit. But it's gambling's so pushed in your face now.
It's ubiquitous now.
Yeah.
Well, you were going to be coming in here sometime soon, no matter what, and then this case drops. So it's great we could go through this whole thing, and we'll see how this all develops and everything. But what I like about you is whenever shit goes down, I know I'm getting a Nadu take online. I know there's going to be some sort of like, all right, everyone's saying this, what's Jeff saying? And sometimes it's in line, other times it's like, well, we're not looking at this the right way. And one of the ones that's been driving me nuts just with the fucking insanity of people making claims that are just sometimes changing videos with AI, or speculating on things that just seem to have absolutely no proof behind it, is the whole like Charlie Kirk thing. You and I were going to be talking about that, so I think also in light of some of the things we're bringing up, we should go through that. But I just recorded with Brian Enton the other day. That's going to be coming out next week. I can guarantee you, Brian, who's like a longtime great reporter, is going to get shit for what he said about Charlie Kirk, but he's reporting on the case, in my opinion, the right way. He's talking to sources.
I will say
he's on the ground, and he's trying to play it like a newsman and not someone trying to like inject the fucking theories of the universe.
Which is, I respect that a lot about Brian. I will say I do have a bit of a bone to pick with him about having people like John Alite on your platform to talk about stuff. John Alite told me the sky was blue. I wouldn't believe him. John Alite is a awful individual.
Can you explain to people who
John Alite
is?
Yeah, Councilman Alite. That's the crazy thing about it.
I just discussed with someone the other day. This has come up a few times over the past few years, but him coming on the show, which is interesting.
Well, just know that everything you have that he tells you is going to be insane. I have voicemails 4 or 5 minutes long from him, threatening me, calling
Jeff,
me.
you have no fucking idea. You understand?
Yeah, you fucking blowjob, this and that.
You fucking fat Albanian.
I would, R-word you on the street, shit like that. He's essentially, John Alite's a guy, Albanian guy. It's funny because back in the day, he pretended he was Italian to get into that cohort. He was tertiarily, is that a word?
We're gonna go with it.
He was somewhat close to Junior Gotti at one point, the son of John Gotti. They were close friends. In fact, Junior was his best man at his wedding. They were pretty close. And eventually there was a big falling out because John Alite is a drug dealer, as John would call him, a garbage pail. And he flipped and cooperated, and nobody believed him. There were no real convictions that came out of his testimony. John Gotti Jr. beat the rap on the case because nobody believes John A. Light. He overinflates who he was. He says he was the chief, and that's what I get a kick out of at these news programs. The chief enforcer. What does that even mean? What is he, the number one guy you pick? He didn't even know John Gotti. He's talking about on documentaries, this guy, John A. Light, that he had principal information about the night Paul Castellano was going to be killed. He was like in his early 20s. Yeah, they're going to tell some random Albanian guy that nobody knew Paul was going.
Was he insinuating that he had something to do with it?
No, he was like, he directly knew about it, he claims. Okay. He's talked about like in the 70s, we were running New York. You were 14, John. What are you talking about? He just overinflates who he is. And people believe it because he looks kind of like a guy that would do that. And I'm not going to lie, like I've done shows on John. I think they're fair. Has he shot people? Has he beat people up? Yeah. At one point, John was a tough guy. But what he's taken his story and he's overinflated it into saying that he was this like principal hitman for John Gotti Sr. And, he was this and that. And he's just gotten to the point now where they put him on and it's laughable, some of the comments he makes. I mean. So
Brian talked to him though?
Yeah, they had him on the News Nation the other night. And I just get a kick.
He goes on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I get a kick out of it. He was on this new Joey Merlino documentary on Netflix.
Yeah, Dave Schratweiser and George Anastasia are supposed to come in here sometime.
Yeah, they did a nice job.
Schrat's a really good guy.
They had John on it, and it's like John wasn't even like, what does he know about Philly? It's weird. I don't want to say I have an axe to grind with John, but John's been overly ridiculous to me in the time that I've done this. And I've learned with a lot of these guys, they don't think I should be talking about this stuff. And maybe in a way they're partially right. But what I've been able to do is build something.
Why not? You're not in the world.
Well, that's the thing. They think that, what do I know about it? And I think some of them are like, why does he have more followers than me? I was in this life.
Oh God.
And it's like, I've had some guys that are cooperators that have told me to go fuck myself when I try to talk to them. They don't want nothing to do with me. And it's, when I started this show, it was just a hobby. I just enjoyed that stuff. I watched the films. I wanted to kind of like understand some of the things. I never envisioned that it would become something that I could make money off of and like be on things like this. I never thought it would become that. And in fact, I didn't really ever want it to become this, but I did it and it's worked out for me in a way. And I think they've gotten to the point where they don't think I should be talking about it because they always reference like there are guys that aren't in the streets and they don't know nothing about this. But go back to Enton. I think he's terrific. His Koberger stuff that he did was, I thought it was some of the best reporting, and there's not a lot of good reporters left.
He's one of them.
I've raved.
He's great.
I've raved to you about Katerina.
Schultz.
Yeah. Brian does a great job.
Which, by the way, shout out to Kat. The amount of shit she got for reporting that baby trafficking story, and she was 1,000% right. And I do want to say this as well because this is some credibility.
That's another thing they don't do.
I would have never, and she and I, we had done multiple podcasts before we did that one as an emergency podcast. I would have never done that podcast if she didn't have the goods. And when she and I went through like over the phone what she had, it was irrefutable. I'll put it this way: everything that I've seen publicly since then, she already knew.
And that's another kind of problem that I have with some of the news media, and I'm not saying News Nation, but even like some of the big, CNNs, places like that, importance in like the Pablo Torre stuff. I know I'm not as big as Pablo Torre. Okay. I get that. But I had information, and because I'm not as big an account as his, and that's one of my problems that I have about Kat. Like, I think Kat is a terrific journalist. I think she is it's really well done. And the fact that like nobody had her on to talk about it.
Crazy.
She went and got that information. She put her life at risk.
Yes. She went down there after she was here.
Yeah. And like, to me, that's really wrong that like I get, and I know all these people that watch this show, I know you don't like my fucking haircut. I know you don't not like me or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, whether you like me or not, I am one of the foremost authorities right now on the mafia in this country. It's 100%. That simple. And it bothers me that like we're putting on this salacious bullshit. And it makes me wonder, do we really want the truth? Or do we just want to fuck around?
People want credit. That's what they want. It's like the old ESPN thing, according to sources. That's how they would always report something when like another network had it first or another reporter.
But then when someone does do that, like Kat, we're going to just pretend she doesn't exist.
Right.
And we're going to push it as our own story.
Exactly.
You know, and that's why I do really respect some of the people that are in, let's say, the cartel journalist world. You know, there's a guy, All Source News, you know, he always credits people, you know, a lot of those guys, they understand the dangers of doing that, you know, and I never compare myself to Kat because Kat is going into Mexico and like she's really getting into the crux of this stuff. And it's just wrong to me that on big level shit like that story, she didn't necessarily get the credit for it. And it bothers me. She should have been on every news program in America.
Absolutely. And she, you know, there's also like in all these worlds you're talking about within that particular lane, like the cartel lane, for some people, you know, there's like certainly a jealousy factor and stuff, or like, who the fuck is this upstart doing this? I can tell you someone who's not like that is Ed Calderon. Ed Calderon's like, hey, who's ever got it, let's
what
go.
I don't understand too about that, because I deal with that a lot in the mob genre. Like, I know that they may come on your show. I've tried to talk to George, Dave.
I've never talked to George. I know Dave personally.
I've tried to talk to all those guys.
Yeah.
They won't talk to me. Why that is, I don't know. Maybe they don't think I should be doing it. But here's the truth, and I said this a couple of seconds ago. I've been able to build this platform, and it helps you. Because on YouTube,
right,
when I do a video on John Gotti Jr., if you're doing a video on someone else connected to John Gotti Jr., someone might see your video because of mine.
That's right.
I might get something out of something you did. I never understood the thought of like, I've always tried to help people, and I realize it's hurt me because it's kind of screwed me in the mob world genre. You try to help people because I think it's beneficial if a new person comes in, you know?
100%, man. But in this business, unfortunately, and it goes far beyond like the mob niche, it's really all the niches. Unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of people who are thinking, for me to have, you have to have not. And like, you know what? If that's how they want to think, hey, all the best to them. But I can only control what I control in here. And when I do stuff, it's always trying to help the people who come on or help them with stuff afterwards. And like, if it comes back around, great. If not, great. Yep. Like you just control what you can control.
And that's
it's unfortunate it's like that.
And that's what I've learned. And look, I know you were talking about Charlie Kirk. I didn't mean to go off on that.
No, we'll come back to it.
But yeah, I just wish, like, you know, I always know, like, in terms of what I do, I've always said, like, there are always going to be people that are never going to give me credit for anything, right? You know, and you know, like I said many times, you know, whether or not you like the person that I am or what I look like or whatever, I have made a living off the internet for over a decade.
Yeah,
and that when I look back on everything I've done in my life, the best thing I can ever say is I can do things like on a Monday drive up here and speak to you because, you know, I see it out, you know, in front of my house. You know, guys working, you know, hard jobs like my father did. And I think like, man, I'm so lucky that Monday is not Monday for me like it is everybody else. You know, I can find ways to make money and like that's to me what I've won in doing. And I guess there's just people that that bothers them, you know.
Can't worry about it, man. It's just a drag on you. Exactly. I see what you're saying, but you know, it's also another thing when you're on like, I'm not doing this, when you're on the ground reporting stories and stuff and you're so like, you don't have a lot of your own show. Like Kat just got her own show recently, but she didn't for a while before that. It's like when someone doesn't give you credit for it, you don't get anything.
It's almost, you know, like I said, with what I was saying, like you just maybe just don't have as big enough account to reach the people. But, what don't you agree with Charlie Kirk and me? I was curious. You said that I say things sometimes you don't agree with.
No, just in general. I didn't mean that towards Charlie Kirk. I wanted your now that we're a month and a half removed from this and the internet's running wild. It
seems like so long ago, doesn't it?
It's crazy.
Seems like that was months ago.
But like what do you think of where forget like what people are speculating on. I mean, bring up whatever you want. Yeah. But as far as what we've been told,
I thought
Tyler Robinson shooting up, you know, and just didn't like him because he had political differences related to the trans issue. Like, Do you think that's the truth, or do you think we're not being told things?
Well, look, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm just an onlooker. I'm not a weapons expert. I'm not a military expert. I remember when it happened, just in some of the small, like, true crime stuff I've looked into and that sort of thing, it seemed like a shot that a normal person probably couldn't do, especially a really young person who probably has limited weapons training. My first thought was, it's an incredibly proficient shot from a far away, and it was only one shot, if you notice. That comes across to me as that is a hitman who is trained to do that. Most of the time when you see a shooting on a street, right, you just shoot randomly and you just hit whoever you hit. It takes a special kind of person, I said this in your other show, to walk up to a person and shoot him in the back of the head and walk away like nothing happened. It takes a special person to perch themselves up on a building several hundred yards away and fire a shot with that proficiency. Because when he was hit, and any person that knows anything about the human body knows that, I've seen my fair share of carotid arteries being severed. That's what happened.
Yeah.
He was dead as soon as it hit him.
Instantly, yeah.
Because when you sever an artery, it's not like you can go to the doctor and they can tie it up. When that hit, it's over.
Yep.
And then I started talking to people, and I know you've talked to, guys that have been in the military and high-level training and things like that, and they said, well, with the weapon that he had, it's not as hard a shot as you would figure. But I'd really be interested in speaking to somebody, most notably that was maybe an expert in that Las Vegas shooting with Paddock, because like I remember when that happened, like when you're that high shooting at the trajectory of the way he was, like normal people can't do things like that. And it just, I thought of that when this happened. Do I think that the kid that they brought out did this? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Why doesn't it make a lot of sense?
Just because, like, I just don't feel like people like that are capable of doing things like that.
The part to me that's above my pay grade that I'm going to have someone in here, we're trying to finalize it right now, to go through is the 30-06 bullet. I'm just going off of what people who are experts in shooting have gone through. And it seems fairly unanimous. Please correct me in the comments if you're seeing contrary cases made about this online, but it seems fairly unanimous that, like, from sub 200 yards, a 30-06 bullet would blow someone's entire head square off. And that did not happen here. And then when you had his producer come out and basically do like the magic holy bullet tweet, which also, the context of that tweet was, he was basically, Andrew Colvett was saying a few weeks ago on Twitter, he's like, I actually got to talk with the surgeon who worked on Charlie at the hospital, and he said it was nothing but a miracle. I believe that's the word he used, that the bullet did not go through the other side. He said Charlie was basically built like Superman, which is like magic bullet theory all over again. And also he's saying it like it made Charlie special or whatever. And I hate to break it to you, but not to be morose here, but he's dead.
Yeah.
It didn't change. Like, whether or not it went out or not, it's not some fucking miracle. He died.
Right.
You know?
And also, like, I said it when this happened. I mean, this is one of the sickest, most wrong things we've ever seen happen in this country, because it's really just a war on media and what you don't or do agree with. My whole thought just is in the terms of the kid that did it, supposedly, like, it's a really also hard thing to, once you do something like this, to then literally get up and walk out and blend in and like that. Like, most people can't do shit like that.
Right.
Especially a young person who really has no experience doing it. We're trying to sell the fact that a young person callously walked up and killed someone the way he did. Now, I'm not going to say that. My guess is he probably had major mental problems. And that's my point in all of this. The biggest problem America faces is a mental health crisis.
Agreed.
It has nothing more to do with that than anything. I'll go back to a shooting that happened a couple of months ago in Minneapolis. It was a Catholic school shooting.
Yep.
I mean, I watched a video of the individual that did that. He put out a 15-minute video the night before where he went over every bullet, every piece of weaponry he had. I mean, this was a deranged character, man. And like, I don't want to rehash like what we've talked about on the show we did, but like, I have a small amount of experience with that. And it's like, it's a shame that we've seen over the last 20 plus years, not only are we not investing in that department, but we have eliminated it. Even the little town that I live in, you know, it's a town of, 60, 70,000 people. When I was a kid, we had multiple mental institutions for young people, for older people, for whatever. You know how many we have now? 1.
Mm.
So where are the mentally ill people? They're on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to a city like this, New York, let's say, and you just 10x, 100x it. And it's like, where are all the mentally ill people? They're in the subways. They're on the street. At what point are we going to understand that this is the problem?
It is a problem. And even beyond the extremely obvious examples like that, when you go up next to the subway and you see someone who's screaming into the air, clearly not well. When you look at a lot of these mass shooters in any event,
normal people don't walk into schools
that's right.
and shoot people in the head, kids and stuff.
But why don't we talk about the fact that almost every time they're on SSRIs and drugs like that are completely fucking with their head? Now, I'm not saying those drugs aren't made for a specific reason.
I will.
But they're handed out like fucking jelly beans.
I told you that when I went into the place that I went, after a while, it was just, I had to stay there and I just started observing. And I saw all the people. There were 31 people in my unit. I was the only person not on medication.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, this medication is clearly not helping, but Andrew, it's probably making them worse. And like I said to you just now, like normal thinking people don't do this type of shit.
Right.
I could understand you have a hardship, maybe you go through a breakdown, let's say. That's normal, that happens. But when we were younger, let's say in even the late 90s, school shooters were just like kids that were bullied.
Well, the first real one we knew about was Columbine in 99.
Well, what if I told you there was another one before that? And it was way worse. And it's actually, I was having this conversation with my mom, and I'm sure there will be a person in the comments that says what I'm about to say, I'm glorifying this person, but I'm not, and I would never.
Okay.
But I think we need to look more into the sadness of how do kids get that broken?
What was the school shooting before
There
Columbine?
was an individual in 1999. His name was Kip Kinkle.
So same year.
I believe it was the late 98. I'm sorry.
Okay, Kip Kinkle.
Right around there.
Let's plug that in. KIP, and then what is it?
KIP, KINKEL.
Okay.
What was it?
KINKEL.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do it.
Yeah, and he's old now. He's in his 40s. He's in prison.
Wikipedia, 1998 Thurston High School shooting.
Yeah, Kip Kinkle.
On May 28th, 1998, 15-year-old freshman student Kiplin Kinkle opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle in the cafeteria of Thurston High School in Springfield, Oregon, killing 2 of his classmates and wounding 25 others. He had killed his parents at the family home the previous day following his suspension pending an expulsion hearing after he admitted to school officials that he was keeping a stolen handgun in his locker. Fellow students subdued him, leading to his arrest. He later characterized his action as an attempt to get others to kill him since he wanted to take his own life after killing his parents but could not bring himself to do it.
And I always like to give shout outs to creators that I think do a really good job. There's a YouTuber documenting evil, and he almost exclusively talks about school shootings. And he goes through 2-3 hour videos where he does this incredible research on these people. And like when you look into Kip Kinkle, it was one of the most damaged people you could ever come across. You hear his interrogation tapes where he's just talking about he's crying, my whole life. All I hear is people telling me to do things. Like he was an incredibly broken person. And I wonder, like, how does a person like that, how do we not see this? You put him on medication, but then he has a couple of good weeks and you take him off it. You're buying him, like, I just wonder, like, people like this. And Kip Kinkle is still in prison. Kip Kinkle's in his 40s. He did this massacre when he was, 15?
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not going to tell people they should go listen to his interrogation, but I don't feel bad for him, but like, the way he cries and like just, I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Like, he talks about systematically killing his father and how, like, and why he's talking about it, he's literally fucking sobbing, crying. This is a 15-year-old child with major mental problems.
Right.
We then find out that, like, people like Kip Kinkle, they did a study of the shooter of Sandy Hook's brain. And there was a brain doctor that said it was the most damaged brain I've ever come across.
I think I remember that.
How are these people at these ages this mentally ill?
It's a great question.
You know, and I'm not sitting here trying to like say that these aren't bad people, but most 100% of people that do this type of stuff are mentally ill.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I guess there's maybe one or two that are just evil people.
Yeah.
But that's a mental illness, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, but I think what you're talking about is more actually documented, completely chemically imbalanced beyond just being like an evil person. And yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's I think it's horrible.
I mean,
if that's also something that did in fact happen here with Charlie Kirk, you now have it on a level where, you know, you create a huge political problem out of it because of who was shot for free speech.
Yep. And that's what it turns into. I mean, you look at the Nicholas Cruz, the Stoneman Douglas shooter.
Yeah.
I mean,
he said he had weed psychosis, I think, right?
Well, but if you look in his background, he was a foster kid. His father was never in a picture, and his mother was a doctor would also state that he had never seen a pregnant woman that consumed more alcohol than her. And what people don't realize is alcohol is the worst thing possible for a growing child.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'm not going to say that that's the reason, but like, we always find that most of these people come from horrifically bad backgrounds and or that leads to major mental illness.
Yeah.
So
that's wild.
I don't know what, and go back to Kirk. Like, I think all of the, you know, that person obviously had, and then all this political stuff is thrown at you and you never quite know who you are. You never know quite what to believe and what not to believe,
right.
You know? And I think a lot of people too, there's a group of people that want to just belong to something.
Yes.
So like, you know, someone like this kid, you know, he wanted to behoove the community that he thought was right. You know, there's like, I've looked into a guy in, I'm really interested and fascinated by like people from America that go and become terrorists.
Like Anwar al-Awlaki, guys like that?
Well, no, like I'm talking about people that grew up in America.
Yeah, he did.
Did he?
Yeah.
But I'm talking more or less like people that are, let's say I'm white, right? Like not with a Muslim background.
Yeah. I got you.
And I found a guy in Russia. He was a Russian-born guy. He grew up in you know, near Moscow, and he actually started in neo-Nazi beliefs, and then randomly converts to Islam.
That's quite the jump right there,
right? And then starts believing in, you know, radical Islam, Salafist Islam, and anybody that knew him stated like this is who this kid was his whole life. He would just go with whoever would accept him. And that's what a lot of these people, it's about. Just like they don't belong anywhere.
A lost soul looking for a home.
And we talked about 764 last time I was here. And thank God, you know, 5-6 months later, they've done some stuff about it. But you look at those types of people in society, they're not respected. They're often trampled and they don't mean anything and they have no purpose. But then they can go on the internet and say, this is my world.
That's it. 100%.
And I belong to something. And that's why I always get a kick out of like some of the most goofy, strange people in the world are moderators of things like on the internet, like Reddit moderators. It's like, you know, you think you're this like, and it's like, you're just a fucking moderator on a Reddit group. Chill out.
You feel important.
But you feel important. Yeah. It's like that kid in school that was always, you know, going to the principal on you, you know, like, why are you doing this? You know, you want to feel like someone cares about you. I think that's another problem too. We've been told that all these groups mean something, right? Like we have to be a part of this, or, you know, what happened to just being a free thinker?
Yes.
And that's what I always have tried to do. You know, there will be one day where someone will call me a piece of shit liberal, and the next day, you fucking Trump supporter, scumbag, hick, you know?
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah, you can't. You're not someone that can be put in any kind of box. Like if people follow you on X, and I would highly recommend it. Like you, for better or worse, call it like you see it on stuff, and I appreciate that because it is the easiest way to make money online these days or build a profile is just picking a set of beliefs, whether it's political or not political, and running all the way.
And
with
I
it.
will never do that.
Right.
And I will never. Another thing that is a major problem with young people nowadays, and the age group after me, is their willingness to throw away any ethics, morals, or values they have, and excuse awful behavior for views. And it's just for views.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm hanging with child molesters, but just views.
Yeah.
No. There's certain things you don't do.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I'm not going to be this or that for views. And what I also think is really concerning about social media is we have awarded that behavior.
100%.
On Twitter, if you align with something and Elon Musk agrees with it, you're going to make a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you stop agreeing, well's cut off.
That's all it is, man. It's just money. It's where does the attention flow? And attention equals money.
And then we wonder where have our kids went. They're trying to be the next fucking Jake Paul or this person or that person. It's just concerning.
Or you could be Jeff Nadu and be the #1 trending worldwide person on X for 3 days because you get on a plane.
And notice that was a strictly. I've never done anything for rage bait. I've never pretended to be someone I'm not. I am who I am.
Right.
I like my haircut. I like the way I dress. I like the gold chain I wear.
Good.
I like who I am. I'm not gonna pretend to be someone I'm not. I don't want hair like yours. I don't like it.
Not a lot of people do.
You don't like my. It's my life. That's a good thing. So what essentially happened was there's a rumor that had been started over a decade ago that for a person that does not like me and I don't like him. We used to work together. Where there was some sort of, according to them, confirmation that I was on a government watch list and I was not allowed to fly. I was on the no-fly list.
Insinuating that you were a terrorist threat.
Correct. And I've flown my whole life. I can't say I could prove it because who really does that? Who takes pictures like, hey, I'm on the airplane? I don't do that. But that company, Barstool, there had been some certain points where I wasn't able to go to an event and it all comes to fruition. Dave hears about it and Jeff doesn't show up to anything. So maybe he is on the no-fly list. So back in July, I mentioned I had gotten in touch with Hustler Casino and we had agreed on me going out to play in a game. And it was the middle of summer and it was a Sunday. I was going to leave because the game was on Monday. So I was leaving Sunday night from Harrisburg International, which is about a half an hour from my house. This is a smaller airport. But I could fly into Chicago and then right into LA. And I like that because it's real close to my house. I get to the airport about 3 o'clock. I was leaving at 6-ish. And I get the text that my flight's delayed, which is fine. I'm not leaving at 7:20. It is what it is. I'm sitting there and I had made a post because everybody knew that I was on the no-fly list. I took a video going through security.
Yeah, you're like, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck all you motherfuckers. I'm through security, so I can't be on the no-fly list. I then was bored. I go up to the gate, United Gate, and I was just confirming, because I don't fly much. I confirm hey, I just want to make sure I'm on this flight. You got the right seat for me, because I'm big on that. I like 1A or 2A or 2D. I like front row stuff.
Gotcha.
I like to be in the front.
First class kind of guy.
Yes. Or just at the front of comfort or whatever. Uh-huh. And she goes, your flight was canceled half hour ago over the phone. And I said, why would I still be here then? And why would I be asking you if I'm on the flight if I had canceled it? She said, well, somebody canceled it.
Oh, they called in a threat.
So I called, I was working with a company. I was promoting them. They paid for the flight. And I said, did you guys cancel this? No. She said, why would we cancel it? I said, I don't know. And I'm arguing with this lady. I'm like, what do I do? And she goes, well, see if any other flights in this airport will take you. Otherwise, she said, I've worked here for 12 years. You're not getting on this flight. And I had already put out this video And I had like 1 million views at this point, like an hour. And I'm like, what do I do? Like I'm going to look like I am on the no-fly list now. So I remember I called a friend of mine, Jack Mack. He didn't answer. He was
Barstool.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. And no, he didn't answer. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get this bag. And I'm going to go to my car. And I'm going to drive home. And I'm going to just turn my phone off. And I'm going to find a way to get on a flight tomorrow morning and get out there. And I'm not going to let anybody know where I am. I'm just going to go dark. Because I figured if I just went dark, like no one would know. Like I would just pretend like I got there late and just went to sleep and I woke up in LA, you know, and I would make it there and no one would find out. So I went to bed. I went home, ate dinner, went to bed. And I was on Twitter. I didn't like anything. I didn't do anything. It was like I was a ghost. I didn't respond to texts. People FaceTime me, called me. The only person I answered was my mother. I didn't even tell her. I didn't tell anybody.
Mama Nadu wasn't in on the flu.
No. And I remember I got up the next day at 5:30. I had set it was a 8:20 flight. I got up there. Everything was great. I get on the flight. I get out to Chicago like 10:50. And my
Flight 1. So you already flew.
Yes. So I went from Harris to Chicago. It's like an hour and a half. I get out there, and my concern I had realized at that point was it's now light out, and there's a bunch of people here. You get to an airport early, nobody's there really. But I'm like, what if somebody sees me? So I forgot my sunglasses on this flight. I went to Sunglass Hut and bought a pair of sunglasses and just try to like subvert people's attention. And the concerning thing about me is, as you can see, I'm not exactly blend into the crowd type of guy.
You look like fucking Demolition Man.
Yeah, like everybody knows me. Like people, if you do see me, I'm kind of an eccentric looking guy. But I got through everything. Nobody came up to me. I got on the flight and I'm on a United flight to LA. I'm landing there locally like 1:30 in the afternoon.
Gate 68B.
70B.
70B.
I'm on the flight. I watched an episode of Sopranos. I got something. I was in first class that flight, so I was eating. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to get on Twitter. I'm going to get some Wi-Fi and get on Twitter. And I just get a fucking wave. Like, yo, like they're talking about you on Barstool right now. There's like 30,000 people watching.
The whole company shut down. They had live streams like of people gathered in large rooms with multiple cameras watching to see if Nadu would land at LAX.
And somebody DM'd me and I didn't respond. They said, yo, you're #1 trending above Kobe. And I said, Kobe, really? And I turned the yak on, and it was around the time where they had invited these two random people to like film me at the airport. And they're watching the flight simulator and everything. And around when we landed, like I fully knew what was going on. And I want to make it clear to anyone that's not aware, like when we say there was a lot of people watching, I think there was like 35,000 people watching.
Oh yeah, the stream was nuts.
It was insane. And I kind of knew like I was going to be like a second or third person off the flight. And I just kind of played it cool. I never contacted anybody. And that was the first time in my life I ever really kind of planned something in content. But I had thought by that point, you know what? I deserve this. These fucking assholes fuck with my flight. I had to deal with this stupid no-fly list shit forever. And what people don't realize is like I was in a kind of a bad spot because I didn't know if like an air marshal was going to come like fuck with me over this, like put me in a room and like, is this true? And like make me go under a bunch of bullshit. So I get there and then the rest was history. And it ended up being like a huge thing. And
yeah, I can't play any of it. We did it with Riz Verk after we recorded right after this all happened and it got like copyright claims. So we had to take it out. But the edits were unreal. They had like the Kanye music of like people waiting for the reaction and like, oh, there he is. Yeah. And then just people,
yeah, it was
funny as shit. Like explaining this to my mom and dad for like a good 20 minutes, the entire story start to end was quite an experience.
Well, that's the thing about Barstool. And I think that's why like Barstool in a way has become so popular just through stories like that. Mm-hmm. You know, like I watched some of the videos on it. Like, I mean, they were really like viral and crazy. And it also goes back to like, you'd have to then explain the story between me and this individual and why we don't have it.
We're not going to say his name.
I just don't. I've kind of tried to move on from that in a way, you know. He Rico, he's
Is it real?
Yeah,
it's real, right?
Definitely real.
Right.
And we've had run-ins since then.
I saw the one where you guys went up and did the content, and like, dude,
but that wasn't set up either.
I can't play because again, it's copyrighted. But you got Portnoy and Big Cat sitting there, and he comes over, and you don't flinch.
So I'll tell you what happened. I was contacted by someone at Barstool with one of the sports books that they work with. They wanted to do a poker tournament, and I play, and they came to me and were like, "Yo, would you fly up to Foxwoods and play?" And
yeah, you and Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, wow.
Right.
He wasn't there. So I go to Foxwoods and I get to my room and he's like, the game starts at 6. He goes, but would you come in to Pick'em, the podcast they have, and, do some stuff? And I didn't know what would happen. I said, if I go in there, it's going to be bad. And he said, well, just come in. So I go in, I sit down, and the premise was we were going to do like a football contest, like pick games and stuff. And it was weird because it's like you two are sitting there and he was sitting closest to me. And I remember I sat down and just like very friendly. I was just like, how are you? Like to him.
He's like, don't fucking touch me.
And he flipped the fuck out, it was crazy. And I didn't flinch because I knew he wasn't going to do shit.
You did not flinch. I don't think he was going to do anything either because if you notice every time he came, and he was screaming like a madman in your face. Every time he came to do it, you just be like, okay.
Yeah.
Like he was being like fake holding himself back. Like if he wanted to hit you, he's going to hit you.
And I knew that. But like one of the problems that has persisted with him for forever in this is, and I've asked him through emissaries to stop doing this, and he continues to do it. And he cannot control himself. But when we did the flight thing, he made a comment about my sister. And, I've said before, like, you can say whatever you want about me. I don't care. Don't bring up my family. They have nothing to do with what I do. And just like anybody, someone's family is separate.
Yes.
And my sister and my family are good sports. Like my sister gets a kick out of some of this stuff, because she's just like a regular person. It's funny to be mentioned. But like during that casino thing, he made a comment about my father. And that really, really got to me because,
that's a hard
and I don't mention family ever.
Right.
I hate his guts, but I would never mention his family. They have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, that's fucked.
And he did it again. And that's when it got to me. And I went to them and we had an episode the following week where I went on Zoom and I said, look, I'm done with this. I've asked this dude multiple times, stop mentioning my family. I said, here's what we'll do. Set a rough and rowdy fight up, and that's how it will end. He didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it. I said, okay, then I'm out.
Yeah, fuck him.
I'm done then. And, I will say this, to kind of end this, the 2-year anniversary came up, and I will say he reached out to me and said some very nice stuff to me about it. It doesn't forgive what he did, and that's kind of where we, I think, got to a decent point, but that's really what got to me. And I said, you know what, fuck this. I'm not doing this no more. Like you've done this persistently for 5-6 years. We've been fighting for like 10, and this is a very real thing. I don't like him. He doesn't like me. But I always try to be at least fair to him, and I tried to make it right, and he never wanted to do that. So,
oh, good for you.
That's that. And
move on.
I do my own thing. And, I've always tried to be sustainable on my own. I was sustainable before Barstool. I'll be sustainable after, but I will say this, and I said this before, Dave's done a lot for me. I like Dave.
Mm-hmm.
He was always good to me. We haven't always agreed, I think that he liked me, he respected what I was able to do. Do I get them a lot of views? Yeah. I never really complained about that because it helped me too,
Yeah, it's mutually beneficial.
But what's crazy is like now there's talk that, they want me to do this spring break thing they're doing, this like it's like a real world type of thing.
You wouldn't have to go to Mexico, would you?
I don't know. I don't think. I think they're talking about Florida. But no, I told him if it's in Mexico, I'm not doing it. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, the whole thing with me and Barstool is it's never over.
It's not. Yeah, you guys are like
they do their thing, I do mine.
Yeah.
Like there'll be people that'll call me and like they'll say, "Hey, can you come on and do a show about this?" Or you know, can you be in this or whatever? You know, I went down to New Jersey this summer. We did
Yeah, you did the Shore House, right?
Barstow Beach House for a night.
I saw I saw all the videos of you just at the bar, macking, teaching all the guys game.
Well, real quick
Good for you.
So real quick, that's a kind of wild story that connects back to this too. So I go to the Barstow Beach House. It was in Manasquan, which is, you know, Central Jersey Shore area. And we're out, and I don't think you can understand, like, when we went out that night, it was like awesome. We were like celebrities. Osprey had a line a block long. We just walked right in, and I got to talking to a girl, and we were talking the whole night. And at the end of the night, she says to me, she's like, "We want to go to DJ's," and I'm like, "Okay, I mean, let's go to DJ's." And I told her, I said, "Look, I'm going to just be honest with you. I don't think they're going to let me in." And she says, "Well, why not?" And explaining to her anything about Barstool was like you explaining it to your family. And I said, "But you know, you see all these cameras and stuff. We're doing like it's like a reality type show." And she had to sign like a waiver to even be on it and everything. So we go to DJ's, and I walk up. As soon as they make contact with the bar back, the security guy, "Nope." So you're not allowed in. He said, "We received a memo today. You're not allowed in here."
We got a memo.
And they showed me my Twitter profile, the mugshot pic. and he goes, "You're not coming in." He goes,
"Fucking United, pal."
He said, "Listen," he says, "I know who you are. I think you're funny." He said, "But management told me you can't come in." And I made a big scene.
You made a scene outside DJ's.
I stopped. I said to the girl, I said, "It was great meeting you." I said, "Have fun." I said, "Don't let me ruin your night. Go with your friends." And she went in.
Gentleman Jeff.
Yeah. I don't want to push that life on anybody. And like, this fucking guy comes out. I guess he was like some general manager or something. And he's like made a big deal about it. And I basically flipped the fuck out. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, what did someone call you and tell you I can't come in here? Who the fuck did this? And I think it led back to him. You know, he's tight with them people there. So yeah, fuck DJs.
Good for you, Jeff.
Yeah, fuck that place.
Letting the girl go in and have fun. Yeah. That's why
she was a cool girl. I liked her a lot, actually. She was cool.
Well, I think you've handled the aftermath of that whole thing with Rico well. It is funny entertainment, and you and Barstool, you know, you're like the couple who's always broken up, but you know, you still go back and
we're good where we are
every now and then.
We're good where we are because I do my own thing. They do theirs.
That's right.
And we can come together and do stuff.
Well, keep doing it, bro. I love your ex Twitter. It's always gonna be Twitter to me, but I love your ex. It's a great follow.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for breaking down this whole
today. I don't know how. It is a bit complicated, but
you did a good job.
It'll be interesting to see what comes from it.
Yeah. But people can go back and watch episode 301 with you. This one will be, I think, episode 350.
And I do want to say one thing to you real quick as we end. You're terrific as well. You do a lot of great work. Some of your guests, I mean, I've really enjoyed.
I appreciate that a lot, man.
Checking them out.
I appreciate that a lot. It's been fun talking with you too, as always.
As always, thanks, man.
All right, everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.